Xiaomu is a warrior who grows wiser and more powerful with each death. In a world where martial arts and immortality intertwine, he turns his defeats into a path to absolute power. His body dies, his will evolves, and fear disappears first. Will he be able to reach the top and become invincible? Let's find out. This story starts out pretty normal. The main character named Xiaomu died, got the immortality system, and rose from the dead. As soon as he realized that he was alive, he started feeling his body, and remembered that at first, there was only a fat cat in front of his eyes, and then it killed him with its butt. A system window appeared in front of him. His mortality rate was D. He got 1 point for his death, and as an additional reward, he got an increase in strength. He looked at it carefully, after which he angrily grabbed the system window and exclaimed, "Where did he even end up? Does he have to die all the time now? Did he only get some power? Now it's not at all beneficial for him to die." He punched the wall in anger, and was very surprised when he left a huge dent on it. All his anger immediately evaporated, and he thanked the system, after which he asked, "What is this balance of points and skills? What are they for?" But the system didn't want to answer his question, and he asked with tears in his eyes, "Is there really no guide for simple beginners? It looks like he will have to die alone." A voice of a passerby was heard from the side. He came across his corpse and exclaimed, "Where did it come from, and why is it lying in the middle of the road?" He suddenly realized that his body was still there, after which he quietly crept closer and began searching his pockets. He found some coins and realized that after resurrection all things are copied. Maybe he needs to die several times to save up as much money as possible? Dying is very painful, but he just needs to try. He was determined to do it, because in any case he was already dead, so he has nothing to be afraid of. After that, he began to try different methods of suicide, hitting his head against the wall, jumping under a fired arrow, dying from gluttony. As a result, his death rating dropped to F, and he did not receive any more points. This made him very upset because he had been dying so hard, but was given nothing. Suddenly, the system reported that he had used up 4 attempts out of 5 for the weekly resurrection. He realized that since there was a limit to resurrection, if he accidentally died after the attempts ran out, he would not be resurrected anymore. He had already died in his previous life, now he had a system. He could not afford to die again. He decisively slammed the ground, deciding that he would not just die like that anymore, even if he improved his skills. There had to be another way to die. He needed to gain a foothold in this world. Looking out from the alley, he saw a townsman who had fallen to his knees in front of a man, asking him to finally pay him back a debt. His mother needed the money now. MC smirked and realized that this was the right moment, and when the man was slapped in the face, Xiaomu walked up to him and asked if he could help him pay back the debt. He wondered who he was, and he told him with a bright smile that he specialized in helping people collect debts. After that, he went to the debtor's house and he said from the doorway that he would not give him anything. He could try to kill him, but he would not give him anything. Then MC put the blade of the sword to his head, and he, carefully moving it away, nervously asked what he was doing. Did he really want to kill him? He put the sword away and told him not to worry. That was not why he came, after which he brought the sword to his neck and said with a smile that his ghost would take care of him. When his blood splattered in all directions, the man went into shock and told him not to die. Is he crazy? Thanks to this suicide, his rating increased to rank D and he received 2 points, but the attempts to resurrect ended. A week later, the resurrection attempts were replenished, and late at night he came to the house of this debtor. Feeling that someone was watching him, the man opened his eyes and, seeing in front of him a recently deceased guy who demanded money from him, he was very scared. Taking the money, Xiaomu left the house under his loud screams, and a week later, again, decided to find a great way to die. In one of the houses, a woman was giving her sick husband medicine, but suddenly the bowl disappeared from her hands and MC drank the contents. Blood flowed from his mouth and he smiled at the man, after which he fell dead. Seeing this, the man immediately recovered and jumped out of bed. He chased after his wife and exclaimed, "Did she want to kill him?" She asked him for mercy. It was the great official of the Southern Gate who ordered her to do this. An hour later, MC came back to life and the man found him to properly thank him. With tears in his eyes, he handed him a bag of coins and said that he didn't think he would be so selfless. He saved him, so he shouldn't refuse the reward. Pretending that it was hard for him to accept the reward, he took the bag, the contents of which made him very happy. In this way, 3 months passed, he died for others and knocked out debts, and so he grew up and became famous throughout the city thanks to his abilities. While he dies for others, his rating continues to rise. After so many deaths, his body has become noticeably stronger, and now he can stretch his arms up to 500 meters, far surpassing ordinary people in abilities. He even runs at a speed of 10 meters per second. But there are new problems. His rating is no longer increasing. Most likely, a larger-scale death is needed for this. As far as he knows, this is a world where immortals and martial arts coexist. There are many robbers and villains in the world. He needs to fight such people in a special way. But their physical skills are still low, so it will not be difficult for him. But unfortunately, resurrection won't make him any younger. He won't stop growing when he dies, and the system won't stop growing either. He can only watch the fun and continue playing even as an old man. He needs to cultivate, then he'll definitely be able to find a way out. Suddenly, a girl appeared at his doorstep, looking for the debt collector, that is, Xiao Mu. However, judging by her appearance and the cane in her hand, she was blind. He told her that he was the debt collector and told her his name, thinking that she was so beautiful and still couldn't see. This is a standard story in all kinds of game plots. The girl said that 6 months ago, her Chao family was exterminated by the Wujihuem clan, and she was the only one who survived. It was a blood debt, so could he help her take revenge? She came closer and said that in exchange, she could teach him the Fist of Immortality technique of their Chao family. He took a closer look at her and asked if her last name was Ding by any chance. She didn't understand what he was talking about at all, and time had passed since then. MC went to the market and asked the owner of one shop, Butcher Zheng, how he could sell products in this pigsty. Why didn't he cut a watermelon for him? He had a dog doll on his hand that was sniffing the products, and the shop owner, already starting to get angry, asked why he came. Xiaomu told him that he heard everything, after which the man couldn't hold back and jumped over the counter, intending to hit him, and MC realized that he really was a martial arts master. He was convinced that he was the one who killed the entire Qiao family, and, throwing the doll off his hand, declared that he would take revenge on him. But before he could strike, the man finished him off without expecting it. So MC lost another life. Realizing that he had hit him too hard, the man immediately mounted his wooden horsebike and fled. Accompanied by the loud cries of the townspeople that he was a murderer, they began to chase him, while Xiaomu's soul moved from the dead body to the new one, and he gritted his teeth, saying that it actually hurt. After stretching the new body, he repeated with a smile that it hurt so much to die. After which he searched the pockets of the corpse and told the system that he was expecting more reward for his death. Finally, his mortality rate rose to rank C. For this death, he received 10 points. In total, he had 20. But he spent one weekly attempt to resurrect, and a new line called skill consumption also appeared. Now it was 5. The progress of learning the introduction to the Fist of Immortality technique had reached 100%. He was very happy about the new rank and wondered, will skill points be deducted? Was it the right decision to activate the system? So he can upgrade his skills by spending these points? 5 points can be exchanged for mastering the Fist of Immortality, but where should he put the remaining 20? He asked the system to grant him the Fist of Immortality, but it reported that his death evaluation did not meet the standard. The selection function has not yet been unlocked, so until then, the system will distribute points randomly. He felt uneasy and wondered if he would have to look for more advanced death methods again? But in any case, for now, he has old Butcher Zheng in mind, so it is too early for him to let him go. Let him kill him a few more times. After that, he went to look for him. After killing him, Butcher Zheng hid in an abandoned temple and was currently writing a letter to his master in which he confessed to killing the child who claimed to have slaughtered the Qiao family. But their family had been completely exterminated. How did he know that? After finishing the letter, he picked up the carrier pigeon and wondered if there was anyone left. In any case, if that was the case, then he needed to get rid of the last member of the Qiao family. Hearing a noise behind him, he immediately turned around, and when he saw Qiao Mu at the threshold of the temple, he was terrified and exclaimed, "So he didn't die?" He decided to pretend to be a member of this family and exclaimed that his name was Qiao Jing and he had killed his brother Qiao Mu, so let him pay for it with his blood. With a wide smile on his face, he rushed to attack, and the man, terrified, began to wave his knife and eventually drove the tip into the guy's hand. He exclaimed that it was in his hand. What was he going to do now? Was he really going to kill him? The man continued to press the knife on his hand, and although it was very painful, he couldn't give up. Butcher Zheng exclaimed that he had problems with his head, after which he applied more force, but did not have time. MC hit him in the face. Staggering, the man moved away and noted that he was different from his brother. He was much more powerful. But next time he would not allow such mistakes. 5 minutes later, he dealt him a fatal blow and caught his breath. Finally Qiao Jing, or more precisely Qiao Mu, died. Looking at his corpse, the butcher said that he avenged his brother, steadfastly walked towards death, but his head was not all right. Since the situation had changed, he decided not to send the letter for now. And at that very moment, MC revived and threw some kind of stick at him. He again introduced himself as his brother and rushed to the attack, shouting that he would never forgive him, and the butcher said that since he was so thirsty for death, he would give it to him. After that, the temple was filled with a continuous roar, and the poor, frightened carrier pigeon eventually flew away. Time passed. Butcher Zheng caught his breath and wiped the blood from his face, saying that killing young people was quite difficult. Looking at the several corpses around him, he wondered how many there were in total. Maybe they were all finished already? Meanwhile, Qiao Mu was hiding behind the Buddha statue and thinking. After his first death, 5 points were deducted, and he finally began to study the Fist of Immortality. The second time, 2 points were deducted, and his technique proficiency level increased by 20%. The last 2 times, only 1 point was deducted, and his technique proficiency increased to 40%, but the rating was lowered. It seems that the higher the technique proficiency level, the more points will be deducted, and the lower the rating, the fewer points will be assigned randomly, so there are quite a lot of restrictions and nuances. He only has 1 resurrection left. Maybe he should come back here in a week? Peeking out from behind the statue, he took a closer look at the butcher and thought that it was now or never. While he was weak after the attack of his last copies, he couldn't give up. In the 4th battle, relying only on 20% of the Immortal Fist's mastery, he almost tied with him in the score. Perhaps he wouldn't be able to fight like this again, but it was worth a try. The faster he completed the task, the faster he could start a new one. Meanwhile, the man examined the corpse and noticed that these guys looked very similar, but each one was stronger than the previous one. His strength was growing, and his skills were becoming more powerful. This guy's strength was almost like his. He was worried that the next one would definitely kill him, but after waiting for a while and still not seeing anyone, he thought with a smile that it was all over now. But it was not so. Xiaomu's voice was heard from behind him, telling him that it was too early for him to rejoice. The man turned around, and when he saw the guy standing on the shoulder of the Buddha, his face twisted in horror. Then MC quickly approached him and stabbed him, causing him to immediately fall to the floor. That's how Butcher Zheng died, and MC got a lot of money from their corpses. He also checked the man's pockets and found a secret letter in there, which confirmed that he really killed the Qiao family. The first time he died from his knife, his death rating was C. Will the death rating be related to the identity of the person who killed him? And will the death rating from another villain be high? He needs to find confirmation of this. He can't understand the rest of the letter, so he will show it to Yuxue. Soon he reached the city and went to the house, telling the girl that he was back. She opened the door slightly, then reached out to his face and asked where he was. She suddenly realized that his voice was different and immediately ran away from him, exclaiming that he was not Xiaomu. He just smiled nervously and thought that he did not expect anything else from a blind girl who had lived alone for more than half a year. By the way, his muscles became even stronger. He pushed the girl into the house and apologized to her that his voice had changed, and she asked if he could somehow prove that he was Xiaomu. He thought for a second, and then asked if her surname was not Ding. So Yuxue was convinced that he really was Xiaomu, because he had been repeating this question for a month. She came closer and began to feel him, which made him slightly surprised, and then with a smile he thought that this was it, true happiness. After finishing the examination, she moved away and made sure that it was really him. He breathed a sigh of relief, and she sat down on the chair next to him and said that after the family disappeared, her eyes began to move, which was a sign that the eyes of heaven would soon open. Besides, she was very perceptive, so he shouldn't lie to her. He said in his mind that he knew everything about her, and then took out a letter and said that she was the only one left in the Qiao family, but the enemy would not kill her because she was born with spiritual consciousness and endowed with special talents. By the way, when will they learn the continuation of the technique? She told him that if he wanted to improve the skill, he only needed to warm up the blood and energy. This process could take several years. He exclaimed that he was not going to work just like that. From the very beginning, they agreed that he would help her with revenge, and she would help him with the technique. He had almost reached the peak of his strength. He could feel it. She noticed that he was assertive, then took his hand and pulled him towards her, smiling and saying that she would test if he had enough strength. She accidentally touched his forearm, and when she felt it, a thought came to her mind, and she immediately pulled her hand back, exclaiming in embarrassment. What did she just touch? He looked at her with a puzzled look, and told her that she touched his hand. What was she thinking? She chose not to answer this question and said that they had only known each other for a month. Was it really okay to cultivate together? She felt his muscles, and said that it was incredible. Training your strength takes a lot of time, and he had already managed to get so muscular. He asked with a smile, since she also thought that he was making great progress. Why didn't she teach him something new? He thought that the Fist of Immortality was a unique technique of the Qiao family. If he perfected it, he would be able to live much longer. There is only one path to immortality, so he needs to work towards it. But his path will not be easy. She noticed that although he is showing progress, he has only been training for a month. There are hundreds of hidden abilities in this technique. In the future, when he fully masters the Fist of Immortality, she will teach him a few more techniques. He smiled and told her not to worry. He is very easy to learn. After all, he has already killed the Butcher Zheng. She was very surprised by this news, and he said that he not only killed him, but also got hold of a secret letter. But he cannot decipher some parts. She said that this is a special code used by the Wuji Association. It seems that he really killed him. She still could not believe that he was able to defeat such a person, and said that since he did it, she will continue to teach him. Let him come closer and begin to meditate. She began to tell him that everything tangible is just an illusion, and one reality arose from many fictions. Half an hour passed, the progress of the Immortal Fist training reached 40%, and he thought that it would be better to rely on the system reward than to train himself. It was much faster this way. He needed to find someone stronger than the butcher and kill him. While he was meditating, Yuxue took out a dictionary for the encrypted text and asked him to look it up and read the letter to her. He immediately took out the dictionary and thought that she couldn't see the text, but somehow she managed to find a translation book. Was she pretending to be blind? With the help of the dictionary, he was finally able to read the letter, which said that Emperor Dian was going to go on a trip to the imperial capital, and the Wuji Association was preparing to gather their people to kill him. Yuxue immediately jumped up from her seat and asked where and when this would happen. Were there any details? He told her that the code was quite difficult to translate. He was not capable of more. He also could not tell the specific time and place. She returned to her seat and, clenching her hand into a fist of anger, remarked that the Wuji Association was quite brave. They could actually do this. He asked how strong they were, and she reminded him that earlier she had said that their family had been destroyed, but she had not given a reason. Wu Shenzhen, he is the second in the world of martial arts. He founded a martial arts club and destroyed many families and clans that also studied it. He does not put other clans in anything, does not allow them to increase their influence. The Fist of Immortality is a unique skill of the Qiao family, which is passed down from generation to their descendants. They have never managed to master this skill. But she taught him this, not so that he would kill Shenzhen. She just wants that when he achieves great success, no one can clip his wings. And she wants to kill Shenzhen with her own hands. Looking at her angry expression, he thought about something, and then said with a smile that he had an idea. Perhaps he could join the association. She exclaimed, "Is he crazy? Why does he need to go there?" After that, he slammed his palm on the table and confidently declared that he would first join the association, and then kill the emperor. In this way, the emperor's court and the association will begin to feud. If the first option doesn't work out, then he'll just find out what exactly they were planning, and once he knows all the details, he'll frame Wuji and help her get revenge. She called him an idiot and said it was impossible, and he just shrugged and thought that at least he'd be able to kill the emperor himself. Maybe his name would even appear in history books after his death, and his rating would rise. Besides, the association should be full of all sorts of skills. He'll be able to learn hundreds of techniques, including the Fist of Immortality. Isn't that the ultimate dream? He said that since Shenzhen was so strong and almost impossible to kill, he'd at least give him trouble. She asked worriedly what would happen if he was killed. He responded with a pompous expression, asking if they could do it. She could tell from his voice that he wasn't lying. He wasn't even the least bit excited. Was he really serious? But what about his intentions? She could only give him the Fist of Immortality. What else did he want? She imagined all sorts of pictures of him in her head and slapped her face in embarrassment, wondering if he was really lusting after her body. Noticing her expression, he asked her what she was thinking again. She turned away from him in embarrassment and said that she just felt like she hadn't paid him enough. What else could she do for him? She suddenly realized that she was being terrible, and he said that there was actually something she could do for him. She asked him with determination what he wanted, and he took out a book with a smile and told her that it was a secret for now. She smiled awkwardly and thought that since he wasn't afraid of anything, she wouldn't worry about him either. She sighed and agreed, and he asked if she knew any of the association representatives in the area. She told him that she knew. There was a man named Guo Yan. He was the ruler of Yancheng. After that, he went to meet him. Guo Yan's son was riding a horse down the street, and his servants were whipping everyone who passed by because they were in his way. They ordered everyone to immediately make way. And suddenly, young Master Guo noticed a very cute man in the crowd and ordered the servants to bring him to him. The guy named Zhang Lang, in whose direction he pointed, immediately pulled out a sword and told him not to even think about it, and the girl next to him called him shameless and said that she would not please him even if she was on the verge of death. She thought that the young master wanted to get her, but imagine her surprise when the servants grabbed her friend instead of her. She smiled nervously and asked, "Is that what he was talking about?" Her friend immediately broke free from the men's grip and pulled out a sword, embarrassedly exclaiming that he was shameless, and she offered to help him and exclaimed that she would teach them a lesson. Young Master Guo didn't like this very much, and pointed his whip at them and said that he would see who would teach whom a lesson next. His other servants immediately rushed to the attack and began to squeeze the poor friends with their muscles. Young Master was enjoying this spectacle and did not notice the guy who was sitting on the roof above him and watching. After that, he jumped on him, and they both fell to the ground with a crash, and the servants became very worried. MC grabbed young Master Guo by the neck and lifted him off the ground, and he ordered him to let him go. He was the lord of Yancheng's city. But Qiao Mu was not at all worried and then began to threaten him with the arrival of his father, which he was only glad about, although he did not show it. Initially, he just wanted to be righteous and brave. Having killed Guo Yan's son, he expected that this group of guys would kill him. But if the lord of the city personally dealt with him, then it would be much better. Suddenly, the system advised him to act boldly and showed that his rank had increased to C+. He was a little surprised, because it was the first time a death evaluation message appeared. It turned out that the system also agreed with him. This made him smile, and while the servants were running towards him, he could hardly hold back his laughter. Still, he couldn't hold back and laughingly hit the young master in the face a couple of times, causing his servants to be terrified, and he ordered them to not move, otherwise he would kill him. The city lord's son exclaimed that this city belonged to him. Is he even in his right mind? After waiting for a while, MC looked at the boy with a strange look, and hitting him again, ordered him to quickly call his father. At that very moment, the sound of hooves was heard. The city lord arrived to deal with the problem along with his servants. His son called out to him with tears in his eyes, and Qiao Mu noticed that he looked very strong. Guo Yan loudly ordered everyone to be quiet, and the flow of energy reached MC, which made him slightly nervous and realized that he was good at martial arts. Just one sentence from him could cause such a strong tension. At the same time, Guo Yan also looked closely at him and realized that he had not yet developed his strength, but he could already hold a person with one hand. He got off his horse, and the energy emanating from him made everyone around him bow down. Qiao Mu frowned, and his body trembled when he felt the pressure flying in the air, but he did not give in to it, and squeezing his son's throat even harder, ordered him not to move. Guo Yan stopped and thought that he could use his strength, but he could not do anything against his pressure. Courage is a good quality. He smiled and asked him not to be so impulsive. They had a lot to discuss. Let him let his son go. He will take care of his behavior in the future. But MC was disappointed. He even changed his expression so that he would finish him off on the spot out of anger. Why doesn't he just kill him? He glanced at the system window and realized that the rating had not changed yet. He decided to act. He pointed his finger at the man and exclaimed indignantly that his son was beaten and he was just standing there and doing nothing. Guo Yan laughed and bowed to him, saying that the two victims were members of the Mingyue clan. They were friends with his family. Next time he would give them gifts. Will they forgive his son for being rude? The boy and the girl looked at each other, doubting that he was sincere. But since this city belongs to him, they can't do anything to him. They both bowed to him, and the girl said that he was very polite. They didn't think such a situation could arise between them. Meanwhile, the townspeople began to hide, and one of them asked if he would forget about this. He doubts that Master Guo would forgive this. Another citizen sighed heavily and said that so many things had happened in such a short period of time, and immediately after that, Qiao Mu's loud cry was heard, calling the city lord by name. He asked, does he really think that if he dumps a large sum of money, everyone will forget everything? It seems that he often picks up the trash after his son. His son ordered his servants to beat up the people who block the way. Does he think that crippling people will be enough of his dirty money? He squeezed his son's neck even tighter, causing him to turn blue, and said that he didn't think this was enough. He was already starting to irritate Guo Yan quite a bit. The smile quickly disappeared from his face, and he said that he just wanted his son to be okay. MC said that this was too easy, then pointed his finger at himself with a smirk and suggested that he should kill him instead. There was silence between them, and one of the townspeople asked if a simple passerby had decided to stand up for them. Guo Yan took a deep breath and said that it looked like they wouldn't reach an agreement. After which, an old man named Afu suddenly walked lightly behind Qiao Mu. Noticing him, he immediately turned around, but pieces of cloth flashed before his eyes. Because of this, he let go of the young master, and he himself was tied up by the old man. He was very happy and thought that there was still a little left. This was the highest mortality rate in his entire life. Guo Yan came closer to him and asked what his name was, to which he gave his name and said that he was nobody. He did not have any patron, he just wanted to kill his son. He smiled and mentally asked him to act faster, but contrary to his expectations, Guo Yan said that he was brave, then ordered Afu to let him go, which shocked both of them. As soon as Qiao Mu was released, the city lord said that he was a very brave man. He liked this kind of thing. If he was interested in joining the army, he could come to his mansion anytime. MC burst into tears because everything was not going according to the script. Then Guo Yan turned around and was about to leave, but when his good-for-nothing son called out to him, he could not hold back and immediately slapped him in the face, ordering him to shut his mouth. He was too arrogant, so let him not meet him again. After that, he mounted his horse, and before leaving, he reminded Qiao Mu that he could come to his mansion anytime. He was still dumbfounded by his proposal, and one of the townspeople said that despite having a worthless son, "The Lord is very good. This righteous man is lucky that Guoyan considers him. He can become a real protector." MC couldn't hold back the emotions that surged through him and cried loudly, wondering why everything returned to normal and why he was still alive. What was wrong with those guys? Why didn't they finish him off? He fell to his knees in grief, but when he found out that the mortality rate remained the same, he immediately calmed down and thought, is the lord of the city not involved in his evaluation? But if he dies, will it still be the same? But what's the problem? Have the events changed, and will death be different from before? Hearing applause from all sides, he looked back and thought that those he accidentally helped were sincerely thanking him. Now he understood everything. If he died now, he would be remembered as the righteous young man who cursed the lord of Yancheng on the street, not as a common scoundrel. He finally understood how the immortality system worked. As long as he remained a righteous brave man, his reputation and popularity would continue to grow. If he managed to die while doing so, he would be able to become stronger. But if he did not die, he would be able to continue to accumulate ratings while alive. It did not matter whether he lived or died, he would win either way. When he managed to die, his death would be the most brutal and powerful. He was so anticipating his death that he began to drool, and people found it strange. After a while, Guoyan and his son arrived at the manor and began to treat his wounds. After the doctor wiped his face, he asked his father why he did not teach this guy a lesson. He told him that they were in no hurry. There was nothing to worry about. He remembered that when Xiaomu was arrested, it was clear from the people around him and his face how much resentment the people had accumulated towards the current government. If he were to kill him in front of the people, his image as the ruler of the city that he had worked so hard to maintain would be destroyed in an instant. He would rather hire him to calm his ardor and gain the people's support. He cast a displeased glance at his rebellious son and said that he should have punished him long ago, otherwise he would soon cause a disaster. Therefore, he was not allowed to leave the house for 2 months. He was being punished. He became curious about the reason and explained to him that during this time, the current saint could visit their city. He was punishing him so that he would not be tempted to cause mischief anymore. His son was very happy and asked, "Is Emperor Dian coming? Is this news really true?" Guoyan smirked and asked, "Does he think he was lied to?" Besides, the city would be full of murderers. Because of this, his son wondered if he would invite Xiaomu as his bodyguard, and he told him that even if he didn't, they could deal with him in other ways. But it would be easier for them if he joined them. Isn't there a battle going on at the Eastern Mountain? He could send him there. Meanwhile, MC returned home and told Yushui everything that had happened. She asked, so he beat up the city leader's son and he invited him to join the army? That sounded promising. He said with a smile that he had chosen the city lord's mansion, and she sighed heavily, took out a book from under her clothes and said that since he was so insistent, she had a technique that could help him. He was very happy, and she told him that this book contained the secret martial arts techniques collected by her family. The muscles are damaged from training, but the result is visible at that very moment, and the organs double in size. Xiaomu looked at the book in his hand, then began to rub his face against it in joy and said with a smile that this was the great law of demonic heaven's disintegration. It was a treasure. The girl said that he needed to train his spiritual power first, and then begin physical training. He was a very capable guy, his type of thinking was special, so it would be easier for him to master this or that technique, unlike others. But he no longer listened to her and was absorbed in studying the book, and she became slightly upset and said that she did not give it to him so that he would continue to work like this. She just wanted him to have a better chance of survival. He told her with a smile that he understood everything, after which he returned to studying the book again, and she sighed heavily. After that, he headed to the barracks of the garrison of Yancheng City. The first thing he decided to do was practice with his weapon, and a crowd of spectators appeared around him. He tried swinging the spear a couple of times, then stopped and looked at it with a smile, thinking that since ancient times, spearmen were considered lucky, who were easier to send somewhere. The warriors standing nearby began to discuss him, and one of them asked, "Is he that Xiaomu? It seems that he does not have much strength, he is quite mediocre." Another warrior said that only a person with the 9th rank of strength can compete with them. He also dared to grab the son of the city lord by the neck. He was lucky that they had such a kind lord. He took pity and allowed him to join the army. Another warrior suggested that the others just wait. He himself will die in a few days. Meanwhile, MC did not listen to them at all and sat down on the ground to meditate. His progress in spear mastery increased to 100%, and he thought that he had mastered the skills. Now he only had to wait for death. He was distracted from his meditation by a man who came up to him with a wide smile and said that he could call him Old Man Bai and asked if he wanted to learn skills. Xiaomu noticed the color of his teeth and called him Old Man Huang and asked if he had anything. In fact, Huang means yellow, and the other warriors laughed and started making fun of him, and then he asked them with displeasure to leave and not disturb them. After that, He returned to Xiao Mu with the same wide smile and said that he had a lot of interesting things, but he would have to work. What did he think about it? His eyes immediately sparkled with delight, and he thought that he had not done any physical exercise yet, but it was time for him to start. The warrior with a thick beard advised him to first inquire about what exactly the work was, and then agree. He realized that he was right and began to ask Old Man Bai for details, and he said with a grin that he would have to work with iron. MC had already imagined how he would work, after which he confidently declared that he loved studying martial arts more than anything in his life, and he wanted to master this mastery of iron. He was glad that he could finally improve his body, and Old Man Bai said that money was not needed. Work was the most important thing. He took out a book of techniques from under his clothes, then quickly looked around and handed it to him, quietly saying that in fact, 4 months ago, Master Guo hit his pregnant wife. They could not save the child. She was very weak after that incident, so he wants him to help him take revenge. He fell to his knees in front of him, and he told him not to worry. Anyway, he would not have taken the techniques so easily. Old Man Bai tearfully thanked him, and suddenly a warrior ran up to them. He told Xiao Mu that Captain Chu was calling him. The man looked at the strategy table and told him that in the eastern part of the city, there lives a leader of a bandit gang named Wang Songhe. He pulled the flag out of the sand and then broke it and exclaimed that he had become a king. It was beyond comprehension. MC did not react at all, and the captain continued, saying that what's more, he was making a living by stealing government property, but nothing more. But then he occupied the eastern land and began to rage there. This thief also steals their women. He took almost all the beauties. If they are lucky, they will still be able to escape from his clutches, and those who are not will die, being at the very bottom of society. Because of this, he burst into tears, and Xiao Mu exclaimed with a burning gaze that he was just a beast, so they must exterminate every single bandit. Captain Chu agreed with him, and said that therefore he was going to gather an army of 1,000 men and leave the city in 5 days. He put his hand on his shoulder, and said with a smile that he had heard of his bravery. Wouldn't he like to be a pioneer? MC immediately covered his fist with his hand in respect, and declared with determination that he would be the pioneer. After that, he walked out of the captain's tent, and thought that in the army of 1,000 people, there were only a few who had the same strength as him. But he was chosen as the pioneer. Is it because he is brave? So this is what the city lord had planned. He clenched his hand into a fist in joy and knew that it was finally time for him to die. Meanwhile, Captain Shu looked out of the tent and thought, is this guy crazy? Why did he agree to this so quickly? Now he needs to be more careful about him. 5 days have passed since then, and they reached the mountains to the east. Old Bai approached MC and said that he knew this area, so he offered to show him the way. Since there is no sign of a camp here, he thinks they should move a little to the west. There is a valley there. Xiao Mu agreed and ordered him to walk behind him, otherwise anything could happen. The man thanked him and said that he was the best person he had ever met, so he would not let him down. MC said that this was an order, and Old Bai nodded, and he thought that it was so hard to die. After that, they went down the mountain and headed into the valley, clearing their way from the grass with a sword. Old Bai suddenly said that his daughter was very strong. She was only 15, and she was already lifting all sorts of weights. And what was he like at 15? Remembering how he fought with the butcher Zheng, he told him that when he was 15, he fought with all sorts of people. The man of course did not believe him and told him to gossip less, and suddenly some kind of whistle was heard in the sky, and when the warriors raised their heads, they saw 1,000 arrows flying at them. Xiao Mu immediately kicked the old man, throwing him away, and then began to swing his spear, reflecting all the arrows. In the end, several arrows still hit him, and he thought that it looked much more epic in the movies. One of his subordinates called out to him worriedly, and suddenly bandits appeared from behind the bushes, who immediately rushed to attack. Old Man Bai squealed in fear, and MC thought with a smile that they were finally here. Now, he would not have to wait long for death. He noticed that his system data was being updated, and thought that it seemed like the cooler the battle, the better the mortality rate. Today, no one would save him from death. He rushed to the attack and ordered his warriors to follow him, after which they all entered into battle with the bandits. One of the warriors miscalculated his strength and almost ended up killed by a bandit's sword. Fortunately, Xiao Mu arrived to the rescue in time. He impaled 2 bandits at once on the spear point, causing them to fall, and one of their swords slammed right into the warrior's groin, depriving him of something important. After that, MC pulled the spear out of the corpses, pushed the enemy away, and rushed to the next bandit. So he dealt with several opponents at once, and his warriors thought he was some kind of madman, and in the meantime he prepared for a fight with another group of bandits. But seeing what happened to their comrades, they immediately ran away in fear. He was surprised that the fight ended so easily, after which, with an unperturbed face, he pulled an arrow out of his shoulder and said that he should stop the bleeding. Old Man Bai immediately fell to his knees in front of him and bowed his head, exclaiming that he took 3 arrows at once. Now he is his eternal debtor. He told him that it was not so, after which his subordinates began to bandage his wounds, and he sighed heavily, saying that one city is worse than another. He thought that initially he wanted to kill the opponents, but who would have thought that they would all run away? His bearded subordinate looked at Old Man Bai and asked, "Xiao Mu, does that mean he also saved his life? Is this how he repays him for the techniques?" Old Man Bai began to bang his head on the ground, and MC asked the man if he also had something interesting for him. He replied with a smile that he did not bring it with him, but there was some in the city. He thought that there were not many people in the world who could block an arrow strike, so Old Man Bai was very lucky. Xiao Mu said that in that case, he would wait for them to return, after which he walked to the edge of the cliff and looked at the crevice in the distance. He noticed that it was quite narrow, and the vegetation was tall. Most likely, there is a bandit hut in front, or an ambush awaiting them there. If they go further, the risk of death will increase. He turned to Old Man Bai and asked what the valley was called, but it had no name. Then MC decided to name the valley himself, and gave it the name Lomu by carving the name on a tree. He looked at it with pride and wondered if it was not a good name for the place where he died. Suddenly, Captain Chu appeared on horseback. He called out to Xiao Mu and asked why they stopped. He told him about the bandits, and he exclaimed with displeasure that he was a pioneer. Where did his fear come from? If he was in trouble, he would immediately come to his aid, so there was no need to be afraid of fighting. Or was he going to disobey his order? He threateningly placed his hand on the scabbard and thought that if he disobeyed, it would be even better. He would have a reason to kill him here and now. But contrary to his expectations, MC obediently bowed his head to him, and then set off with the thought that he would not contradict him. He hoped that they would become brothers. He did not want to die because of disobedience. It was better to die from the hand of a bandit. Gritting his teeth in anger, he decided that when he figured everything out, he would get to the captain. But suddenly his face darkened. When they went down into the crevice, they were attacked by bandits from all sides, and Old Man Bai worriedly said that this was still an ambush. But there were too few of them. They would not cope with them. MC ordered everyone to run, and the warriors rushed away from the bandits. But when Old Man Bai turned around and saw that Xiao Mu had stayed behind to fight the bandits, he exclaimed that their leader was risking his life to save them. The bearded man decided to go back to help him, and MC fought off the bandits, ordering them to leave and not even think about coming back. After that, he continued to fight, and his subordinates could only watch him worriedly. And suddenly Captain Chu's voice was heard from the top of the cliff, telling them not to retreat. This was the order of the general. Xiao Mu gritted his teeth in frustration and thought, he can't die if the whole army starts fighting, right? The warriors immediately returned to their pioneer to die together. But MC blocked their way with his spear and kneed the bandit in front of him in the stomach, ordering them to leave, and asked Old Bai, he doesn't want to abandon his wife and have his daughter bullied, right? He exclaimed in response that even so, they can't watch him die, and MC rushed to attack, ordering them not to watch it. Old Bai anxiously extended his hand after the retreating commander, and he, entering into a fight with a new group of bandits, exclaimed that if they could not fight, then there was no need to try. If they were afraid to say something, then he would say it. Suddenly, an arrow pierced his chest, and then several more. The bandits surrounded him from all sides, and he, smiling, looked up at them, said that if they could not die, then he would die. Several bandits flew in different directions. One of them fell to the ground. The protagonist's spear pierced right between his legs, and the protagonist shouted, "Don't move." He beckoned the others with his finger. They must come to him. Swinging his spear once again, he felt a surge of strength. His eyes were burning with excitement as he tried to dodge and attack the armed bandits who were attacking him. He felt like he was about to make a breakthrough. After that, he threw several more bandits away from himself. Captain Chu, who was watching him from the top of the cliff, was surprised. Inner strength? It turns out he has that too. A martial artist who can train his fighting spirit at the age of 20, he is either very talented or very brave. But how many rounds can he last? As the protagonist continued to attack the bandits, he noticed that something was wrong. Where did he get such abilities? Does he have some kind of hidden skill? He put his hands to his face and frowned, thinking, so he used the heavenly demon technique. What a rude move. Now he is definitely finished. At this moment, Old Man Huang desperately called out to the leader. MC spun his spear around himself several times and told the bandits to stay back. He declared that no one is allowed to cross the line. Then one of the bandits raised his weapon in the air and shouted, "Attention! Everyone attack!" Then the bandits resolutely ran towards the protagonist, and he smirked, attacked them with his spear, and made his way forward, while his subordinates watched his actions with alarm. Several more arrows pierced his body, and then he climbed the mountain of corpses and looked at the sky. The general laughed, and then, turning to his subordinates, he shouted, They will rise up for the sake of Pioneer Qiao. Attack! Kill them! After a while, he galloped onto the battlefield, turned around and said, "It's over, they have to go back." Huang shouted in confusion. "Are they going back? But they still haven't found the bandits' lair. How can they go back?" Chu replied that there were too many bandits. They were too tough for them. "That's an order. They're going back," Huang said irritably. "Why did they even come here? Did the leader die in vain?" His comrade put his hand on his shoulder and said, "Well, they can't help anyway. They'd better help the leader. It seems he has a blind sister. Her life depended on her brother." After that, they covered the protagonist's body with a cloth and wished him a safe journey. Memories seemed to pour into his head and he thought, here's a B grade. And his skills have improved too. A C grade alone would be hard to achieve. He thought that 100% efficiency was only possible if he cultivated for 10 years. And to get a B grade, he would have to train for 20 years to achieve 150% efficiency. "I wonder what I have to do to get an A grade." He laughed as he waved his spear, then looked to the side and crushed an ant that was crawling on a tree with his spear. Looking at the ant's corpse, he thought the high quality of death was good for him. He should thank that brother. At that moment, a chill ran through Captain Chu's body, and then they continued on their way, and the general, turning his attention to the inscription on the tree, asked what was written there. Huang replied, "Lomu Valley?" The leader wrote it. The bearded man punched the tree and said with tears in his eyes that the leader suspected that an ambush would await them, so he decided to give this valley a name at the end. He is afraid that he knew he would die. Huang added that the leader died for them. At that moment, the general asked what they were doing there. Huang walked up to Captain Chu and bowed, saying that this was Qiao Mu's corpse. He asked, "A corpse?" The old man thought, what a fool, wouldn't he even let them take his body? Then he said that his body couldn't be left to be torn apart by the animals here. They should send the body to Yancheng. He would help with the burial. Huang, trying to hold back his tears, thought that it was his fault. The captain thought that Mu was a good man. He killed so many bandits. It was good that all the gratitude would be his. He hoped that in the future, there would be more people like him in the army. The master's task could be considered complete. All that was left was to hand over the body. I wonder if the master would be happy? By the way, didn't Mu have a sister? Licking his lips, he thought that he should take care of her. The next second, blood came out of his mouth and a spear pierced his neck, pinning his body to the trunk of a tree. He stretched out his trembling hand towards the top of the cliff where the protagonist stood, and the next second, he died. The warriors cried out in alarm. Enemies, they were attacked. Huang asked, "Bearded man, did you see that shadow?" He remained silent in response, and then squeezing the cloth on the protagonist's body, said that he saw there was a bandit. His comrade agreed with him. Then one of the warriors shouted, "Attention! Everyone must gather! The bandits are returning! They must leave." Meanwhile, hiding behind the rock, MC looked at his hand and thought, this is cool. Captain Chu is an 8th rank, but even he could not withstand his strike. The mortality rate of B threw him back to the 8th rank of strength. Moreover, this time he managed to gain control of the technique. The spear entered him like clockwork. It's just a pity that he lost his hand. A few streams of blood flowed down his hand, and he thought that he was born for this self-destruction technique. Besides, who exactly killed Captain Chu? Here come the bandits. Looking at the retreating horsemen, he shouted in confusion. Running away? Where to? He hadn't died yet. He had already imagined himself dying twice. What was going on? Then he thought, wasn't that the voice of old man Huang? He had saved his life, and this was how he repaid him. He slammed his fist on the rock in irritation and thought that, judging by the shout, they thought that it wasn't him who killed the captain, but the bandits. But the bandits had arrived just in time. At that moment, several bandits were hiding in the bushes behind him, and MC clenched his fist and shouted, "So they were only pretending to retreat, and they were planning to set an ambush. Well then go ahead." He would never kneel before the bandits. He knew that he was almost disabled. It would be easy to kill him. At that moment, the bandits knew that he was supposed to die, and turning in the opposite direction, they began to run away in fear. They shouted, "Demon, so he's not dead?" He shot all his arrows at him. Why isn't he even properly wounded? The protagonist instantly appeared next to them and said, "No, they shouldn't be afraid. He's dead, and he's his older brother." One of the bandits said, "Demon, he thinks they'll listen to him?" The protagonist shouted indignantly, "What? They should believe him. Qiao Mu is his younger brother. He's come to avenge him." One of the bandits, turning to his comrade, noticed that he doesn't look like an adult. Besides, he killed Captain Chu not long ago, and his partner assumed that he was a ghost. He's already killed Captain Chu, so they're next. They then continued to run away and begged the protagonist not to catch up with them. After a while, they arrived near the bandit leader, Wang Song. He desperately shouted, "Leader, he has to help." That ghost MC, running past them, shouted, "Bandit leader?" He thought that he was killed by a common soldier and received a B grade. He thinks that if he is killed by their leader, he will earn an A grade. Then he smiled and shouted that he had come to avenge his brother. He stopped in front of Song He and looked at him in surprise, then asked, "Is he the leader of the bandits?" He laughed and replied that it was him, he was the leader. Song He leaned against a tree and put a handkerchief to his lips, from which blood was oozing. The protagonist, perplexed, thought, is the leader of the bandits really a sick guy? At this moment, a subordinate approached the leader, and waving his hand, said that he claims that his name is Qiao Lin. He is Qiao Bai's brother. He killed his captain. The leader of the bandits looked at him in surprise, and then, laughing, said that he thinks that there is a lot to talk about with him. He believes that not everyone can kill their captain, a very brave act. Brother, would he like to join him? He will follow him everywhere. Tell him about the latest events. The protagonist asked in surprise. He wants to recruit him? He is not afraid that he will start to avenge his brother? In response, he laughed again and said, but if he kills him, and he him, then what is the point? The protagonist noticed that he was right, and then shouted, but he is an honorable man. Why did he need to become a bandit, to live in the mountains and forests? He thought, bandits, whoever they are, they should not try to brainwash him. He wants to die quickly, so they should hurry. The leader of the bandits noticed that his subordinates were looking at him. He thought that they might be angry and approach. They might kill him. Then Song He put his hand on his hip and asked the main character, did he not understand why they were in this situation? He replied that it was the circumstances. There was famine in the city. So they decided to escape, right? He thought, he also died of hunger in the beginning. Then the bandit leader thoughtfully put his hand to his chin and said, exactly. He walked forward and added that his words were wonderful. It was very hard to survive now. Their ideals were very hard for ordinary people to understand. And then he took his sword out of its sheath and added, the bandit leader wanted to be the one to help the others. He will ask again if he wants to join him? He replied that he refused because he didn't want to have anything to do with the bandits. He wasn't interested in that. They exchanged glances, and Song He, coming closer, asked if he could see for himself how they lived. Then he would make a decision. He agreed with this and thought that if he went into their lair, he would definitely not be able to leave alive. Excellent move. His path to death. A quarter of an hour later, the protagonist, shielding himself from the sun with his hand, looked around the area and noticed that it looked more like a village. Turning around, he asked, so there were children and old people living here? The bandit leader replied that they were poor and disadvantaged people. They took them in. The prosperity of Yancheng is just an illusion created by the city's lord. Everyone who lives here now was once driven out of the city. The lord only cared about the immortals, trying to please them in every way. He doesn't care about ordinary people. MC added that he had heard of immortals, but had never seen them. Could he tell him more? He replied that judging by his body, he practices the Fist of Immortality, right? This is the Qiao family's technique, right? Has he really never seen immortals before? He waved his fists and replied, does he think that the Fist of Immortality has told him all the secrets of the world? He laughed and said that the Fist of Immortality is a special art that not everyone can do. This is not the best place to talk. He should follow him. Sometime later, in the Taoist temple in the village, Song He pointed to an immortal and explained that this is a Taoist mentor who currently lives in the world of immortals. The protagonist noted that, apparently, this was a completely different world. That is, it seemed that he had done everything and tried so hard in vain. Of course, the gap between a martial artist and an immortal cultivator was still very large. Would he be able to achieve what he wanted at all? Then his interlocutor added that in fact, humans and immortals have almost the same origin. But immortals live in heaven, do not take mortals into account at all. They take them for their servants, forcing them to wrap various spiritual roots and please them. But mortals do not consider themselves cattle. However, if you disobey the immortals, it's the end for you. The funniest thing is that mortals are enslaved. Without even knowing it, they are a kind of resource in the hands of immortals. The protagonist wondered, what kind of capitalist behavior is this? A disgusting feeling. High profitability is accompanied by high risks, and at the same time you still need to please the immortals. But can the system play against the immortals? Maybe try? With these thoughts, he pushed off the ground and swung his fist, flying straight at the immortal. He shouted that he was born to be free. He understood that he would break the statue and then wait for the lightning to strike him. Song He, perplexed, shouted, what is he doing? The next second, he swung his sword and hit right in front of the protagonist's fist, stopping it. After that, the sword flew to the side and turning in the air pierced the head of the statue. The next second, blood gushed out of the bandit leader's mouth, and the protagonist thought that this bandit almost interfered with him. Then he came closer to him and said, didn't he say that immortals are bad? Why did he stop him? There was no need. He awkwardly put his hands in front of himself and replied that he should not misunderstand. He is engaged in magic, not cultivation and immortality. In common parlance, the practice of managing immortals. He wiped his mouth with his handkerchief again and explained that immortals should not live, and he could not wait for the moment when they were exterminated. He was just a little embarrassed by his actions. You can't break the statues, what if they also bring down the punishment of heaven upon themselves? The protagonist irritably remarked that this was exactly what he wanted. Then Song-hee asked, is he not so afraid of immortals? But he replied that he should calm down, or else the blood will not stop. He understood what he wanted to say, he would be more careful. By the way, since he had to practice immortality to fight the Celestials, did that mean that all martial arts were useless in this situation? He understood that he had long been interested in this question, but he had not yet begun cultivating immortality. Song-hee replied that martial arts train the body, and cultivating immortality trains the soul. If he insists on explaining, the strongest martial artist today, the martial sage, can fight an immortal in strength, but not in spiritual strength, only in physical strength. Immortals are strong not only because of their techniques, but also because of their longevity. Even if immortals do nothing, they can easily kill mortals. But cultivating immortals is harder, not everyone can do it. Moreover, the progress of cultivation is slow. Each seclusion and cultivation will last for decades and hundreds of years. The speed of practicing martial arts is much faster than that of immortals. If there is a person in the world who can not only learn techniques but also gain longevity, he believes that he will be able to fight immortals. They are very concerned about the issue of overthrowing immortals. Then MC patted him on the back and said that he does not need to be angry. He thought that in this way, the Fist of Immortality is actually an exit from the realm of martial arts cultivation, worthy of becoming a sister's family heirloom. He still has a resurrection system, which will be of great help. He can cultivate much faster than ordinary people, and his body allows it. Then he said that it takes tens of thousands of years to become immortal. The bandit was surprised. Why did this guy look like a madman? Then he asked, by the way, do you think he has the qualifications to cultivate immortality? He thought that he would need to find the right moment to cultivate. He wants to achieve a lot. Hongse pushed him away from himself and replied, if there are no spiritual roots, then nothing will work. Then the protagonist peeked out from behind the wall and looking around, said in his interlocutor's ear, can his staff be considered a spiritual root? The next second, he demonstrated this, and the bandit leader, embarrassedly covering himself, asked, a staff? He, of course, must excuse him, but he does not think that he can help him with anything. Then he turned around and said, if there are no more questions, then they are leaving. MC was surprised. Where? Didn't he want to recruit him? He replied that he knew that he had great thoughts and good intentions. Therefore, he couldn't help. The protagonist agreed with this and laughed awkwardly. The bandit thought that he was too annoying. He shouldn't stay here. The protagonist looked at him with a pleading look and asked, but if he let him go, wouldn't it be a threat to the lair being discovered? He turned around and replied that he didn't seem like that kind of person. Besides, he was planning to leave this land anyway. The MC sighed, spreading his arms out to the sides and said, okay, so be it, he won't tell anyone. Then he put his hands behind his head and walked forward, thinking, well, he won't run anymore and will return to Yancheng. He will run. Maybe he will suspect him and catch up. Meanwhile, Yuxue opened the door a little and asked who it was. Young Master Guo waved his fan and said, their master is the son of the city lord. Xiaomu was very heroic. He came to express his gratitude. He thought to himself that such a beauty was left without sight and probably would not have children. She asked what happened to Mu. He did not return. He smiled maliciously and replied that he was no longer there. Yuxue asked anxiously, what did this mean? And he, closing his fan, put his hand on the coffin and shouted, he died. She said that she did not believe it. She walked forward and, opening the door a little, said that he could not die so easily. At this moment, the young master pressed himself against the door and said that he thought of everything. Mu's corpse is here. She doesn't have to thank him. Then he grabbed her hand and, leading her out of the building, explained that he decided to bring the body for identification. She shouted, what is he doing? The next second, he tilted her face to the face of the corpse and said, since she cannot see, then he will describe to her what he looks like now. All his bones were broken. There were at least 50 stab wounds and arrow wounds on his body. His face was pale and covered in wounds. Yuxue pulled her hand away and said, no. He made a dissatisfied face and shouted, no, it can't be. This is a lie. The coffin is also fake. And it is fake. Everything is a lie. If he says so, will she feel better? At this moment, the main character's subordinates were watching what was happening. The bearded man, clenching his teeth in anger, said, idiot. He will kill him. Huang grabbed him by the waist and, holding him in place, told him not to be so impulsive. They are powerless. They cannot even say a word against it. When he leaves, they will help the girl bury the leader, and they will give her some money so that she does not grieve so much. At this moment, the young master brought his face very close to Yuxue and told her to cry if she wanted. He offered to help her pour out her feelings. He took the bowl of soup from the cook and said that in Yancheng, they believed that Mu was very masculine. Why shouldn't she try a piece of his flesh? She would feel his masculinity. She cried out indignantly. And he gave the order, "Go ahead." They would feed her. The next second, the cane fell from her hands, and several of the young master's subordinates held it down, while another brought the plate close to her face and told her to drink. She gritted her teeth, trying to resist, and the next moment, Old Man Hans snatched the plate from his hands, ran further away, and drank the contents. Then, turning around, he smiled and gave her a thumbs up, saying that it was very delicious. The young master got angry and kicked him in the back and shouted, "Who is he? How dare he contradict him?" Then the bearded man lifted his comrade and, raising his hand, explained that they were Xiaobai's assistants. Old Man Huang did wrong, but he was very hungry. Please, he must not be angry. The young master looked at him indignantly and then was horrified. Haven't finished eating yet. At that moment, the protagonist approached them and said how fragrant it was. The young master, turning around, did not recognize him, and the protagonist noticed that the soup was not bad. Will they give it to him? Huang happily shouted, "The boss." Yuxue asked in surprise, "Qiao Mu?" The others were also surprised by his presence. The young master clenched the fan in his hand and was surprised. This can't be. Then he turned to the coffin and thought, this bastard. How did he do it? The protagonist took off his hat and laughing, abruptly approached the young master. He swung his spear and pierced the hat in midair. The people present looked on with alarm. Afu swung his sleeves and attacked the protagonist, whose hands started to bleed. Wang, who was watching from behind the wall, noticed that this was not the leader. He looked much more ferocious than him. Afu shouted, "Xiao Mu is dead. Who is he?" He was surprised that the blow was so sharp and strong. It did not look like Xiao Mu at all. Then the protagonist said that his name was Xiao Lin, and Xiao Mu was his younger brother. Afu cried out in surprise, and he added that he saw his brother's mutilated body. Even if he died, he would still avenge him. Afu then said that he would tell him something. At this moment, the young master ran in the opposite direction and shouted that they should leave and they would kill him next time. Uncle followed him, and MC felt pain in his arm and thought that he was afraid that Mr. Guo would strike again soon. He needed to die as soon as possible. Then he announced that tomorrow, he, Xiao Lin, would bury his beloved brother's body outside the city. Afu turned around, sighed and thought, so he was leaving tomorrow. Why not meet him outside the city? Then the protagonist threw the spear over his shoulder and said that he was hungry. He didn't think he could eat anything. After that, he poured the dish from the pot into a plate and began to drink. At that moment, Huang shouted that he shouldn't drink this. It was from his brother. Then he vomited again, and the protagonist took out a piece of meat and explained that it was pork liver and heart, not what they thought. Did they really believe them? Besides, he heard that his brother's death was violent, the internal organs were damaged. How could this be put in soup? He thought that he had done it for a reason. Then Yusui came up to him and touched his shoulder, and he jumped in fright. At this moment, a subordinate shouted that Xiao Mu's ghost was in the city. Guoyan turned around and asked, what did they do? Afu asked, what else could he do? The ruler, his son, expressed his condolences to the Qiao family, but then his brother, Lin, came. He looked exactly like Mu. From his observation, Lin and Mu were an inch apart in height. They looked the same, but it was obvious that they were different ages. He was ranked 8, but he would soon reach rank 9, which was not surprising. Yan asked, how strong was Lin? Mu had just died, and Lin showed up. He thought that this was not a coincidence. The emperor was approaching, in the midst of an eventful autumn. The lord of the city had no time to worry about trivialities. Afu, he must go there. He must remember to cut down every last root. Afu accepted his order. Meanwhile, Yushui reached out to the protagonist, and he recoiled and was surprised. Is she sick? He waved his hand and shouted, lady, he is turning 28 this year. But it is still too early. Each of his relatives has 18 types of weapons and various techniques. She must respect herself. She looked at him thoughtfully. At this moment, Huang handed him a bag, and MC said that his brother died just a day ago. The government reacted so quickly? Was it really from the government? His subordinates smiled awkwardly, and Huang confirmed it. The protagonist sighed and noticed that most of the bag was money. He then handed the bag back and said that he did not need payments from such a terrible government. The bearded man asked, but is there a choice? Everyone gets money without exception. He showed the book and explained that he had previously promised to give Mu the skill book in exchange for help in the dynasty struggle. The protagonist took the book and thought, here's another skill. I should learn this. Then his subordinates went into the alley, and he, turning to Yuxue, said that his brother often talked about her. Tomorrow he would fight the son of the head of Yancheng, so he advised her to leave this land as soon as possible. She suddenly began to sniff him from all sides, and he put his hand in front of her and said, stop playing around already. Does she know he has been training something for many years, so if she continues, it will be hard for him to restrain himself. She told him to stop pretending. After all, he deliberately expresses himself in strange words. He wants to shake her common sense, but it will not work. The smell of his body, the way he speaks, his voice, intonation, all this gives away that he is Mu. He awkwardly scratched the back of his head and replied, "Who would have thought that the blind are so sensitive?" After a while, they sat down at the threshold of the building, and she asked, "So how did he manage to fool them?" "Cheated," he answered, almost. In fact, during the battle he was seriously injured, so his teammates thought he was dead. Later, he was lucky enough to meet the head of the bandits, Song Hae, whom he also deceived. She sighed and said, "An immortal, so that's it." He added that he remembered that she once said that she was born with spiritual roots. They even wanted to accept her as a disciple. But the Chow family is a martial arts clan that refused to cooperate with cultivators. She took a cane and said that she had different views, so she could not walk the path of martial arts. Perhaps it is worth becoming a cultivator after all. He smiled and answered, "Of course, but the night of extermination is about to arrive, then things will be bad for them." Then she turned to him and asked him to give her his hand. There are many of Mr. Guo's people outside the city. He himself was a 6th-rank martial artist, and there were more than 1,000 warriors in the barracks, but he had already reached the 8th rank and was unrivaled. Therefore, he should give her his hand and go with her. He thought indignantly, did she want to make him her guide? She clenched her fist and added that in fact, after what she had seen today, she wanted to take revenge. But she did not have the strength to take revenge. It was a pity that she herself was no good. Therefore, she had better ask someone worthy. But tomorrow, she would leave Yancheng and enter the path of immortality, and he would stop chasing after Guo. With that, she took out a book from her chest and added that he had already given his life for her, but she could not repay him in kind. This book of ripples and waves for him. It could help him learn many techniques. His spiritual strength would accumulate. He was surprised. Really? She said that this was a book of his clan's techniques. He must take it. This is the last secret of his clan. He took the book with tears in his eyes, and she added that it was a big responsibility. Then he turned around and said, "By the way, his sister hasn't forgotten about his case, has she? She hasn't finished reading that book yet?" He extended his fist forward and declared that they both had paths they would take to achieve what they wanted. But if they just stood there, nothing would change. She said that she would wait for him outside the city for a week. If he didn't come, she adjusted a strand of hair and added, "No, as soon as he came, they would continue on their way." After a while, MC walked to the hill, holding his ashes in his hands, and noticed that he had a beautiful coffin. Then he sighed, began to dig a hole, and said playfully, "Brother, why did you leave him? How should he live in this world now?" At that moment, Afu was watching him. Adjusting the gloves on his hands, he jumped down, aiming at the protagonist, but he managed to scatter the ashes of the attacker right in his eyes. He shouted, "Is this some kind of special technique?" His brother had it. He answered, "Exactly, but it will be useful to him in battle too." Then he pierced the attacker's body with his spear and told him to die. He thought that such a brave opponent would be recognized by the system. He would continue. Afu, spitting out blood from his mouth, said, "The 8th rank, even without sight, he will get rid of him." Swinging his leg, he attacked the protagonist, thereby breaking his ribs and throwing him off the cliff. The protagonist, falling down, gave him a thumbs up and said, "Thank you very much." Afu, looking down from the cliff, said, "Two brothers at once rush to desecrate the lord of the city, for which they will face the punishment of death. And it's time for him to go." Then he turned around and was horrified to see the protagonist. He adjusted his hair and said, "Old man, does he think the Chow family members are that weak?" He replied that, fortunately, he had already dealt with one of the brothers, otherwise it would be hard to stand up to two. The protagonist enveloped himself in a terrifying energy and, pushing off the ground, put his leg forward, attacking the enemy. Afu, dodging to the side, shouted, "This technique again? Is their family made up of nothing but suicides? He will become another dead man who died at his hands." The next second, the protagonist really flew off the cliff. Falling down, he showed the enemy a heart. Afu declared that he was finished, and then the protagonist appeared behind him again and, smirking, said hello. He smiled and said that they met again. Afu was perplexed. Him again? A monster? A demon? A cultivator? Why did another one come out? When did he manage to fall into the illusion? Is he trapped? Can he see everything clearly? And then he grabbed the wound on his chest and shouted that he was a demon. He thinks that he can be deceived by a pathetic fake? The protagonist pushed off the ground and attacked the enemy with his spear. He wondered where the Chow family got such strength from. Are they not afraid of death? Are they really human? He then waved his arms, throwing the protagonist back. He flew off the cliff again and said, "Until next time." Afu shouted, just like a demon, "Lies, all lies." The next second, the protagonist was behind him and shouted, "Demonic body." Afu, indignant, shouted that he should not think that he would fall for such a thing. He should die already. They continued fighting again, and MC thought that he was not bad. The previous times, he received good rewards for a C-rank death, but unfortunately, the last death was D-rank. Since he was of no use, it was time to die. He turned the spear in his hands and, thrusting it into the enemy's chest, said that he would not delay him any longer. Afu threw him off the cliff again and shouted, "No matter if he is a demon or a human, he will not give up so easily." The protagonist appeared from behind him again and grabbed him by the neck, shouting that he will tell this in the afterlife, and he will be reborn. A system window appeared in front of him, which said, "Weekly resurrection. Resurrections per week, 5 out of 5. After that, he jumped down with his opponent and Afu shouted that he must let him go. He grabbed his hands and shouted that he must remove this. He thought, memory 1, 2, 3, 4. What the hell? He didn't think it was that long. Then they crashed on the ground, and several wolves that were sitting nearby were surprised. Food from the sky? A gift from God? Then MC revived on top of the cliff again and said that the task was completed. Then he looked at the stats window and was surprised. Why is it D rank? And the skill growth has stopped. At present, he doesn't have many new skills. The chi wave hasn't opened yet. But the higher his grades, the faster he will break through. The next second, a system window appeared in front of him, congratulating him on receiving additional rewards. Resurrection reward. He can set resurrection points or revive in a deserted place or in the city. He smiled, pressed the system window to himself, and said, "Here are the resurrection points. With this reward, he can mislead opponents with his appearance." He grinned and thought, "I can't wait to try it. We must go to the city lord's mansion." Walking forward, he put his hands behind his head and said that he will return to the city and change clothes, and then to the ruler. Sometime later, in the kitchen of Guo's mansion, the workers were doing their own thing, when suddenly the protagonist entered inside and began to attack the cooks with a slingshot. Stopping, he grinned and said how many times he had been resurrected, but he had never celebrated it. "Enjoy your meal, everyone." After that, he started eating the noodles and, pressing himself against the door, he heard the voice of the young master, who laughed and said, "Let him smell it first, and then he can get the meat." He thought that if they went in, he would be discovered. Besides, there might be someone behind the door too whom he had not seen yet. If he was discovered, then there was no way out, right? Would he have to die? The young master then kicked the door and shouted, "Who was inside?" He must open it. He added that the cattle were hungry. The protagonist then grabbed him by the clothes and dragged him inside. The young master ordered Dahe, his dog, to eat him, but MC scratched the animal's belly and said, "Good boy." After that, he put a spear to the young master's neck and said that he must remain silent and answer his questions. How many warriors entered the mansion? He replied fearfully that his father had 6. He also had about that. There was also his uncle who had gone to kill him. Then there was Zhao Wen. He didn't know exactly how many people were with him. He asked if he knew about Wuji or the Emperor's secret journey. He was surprised. How did he know about it? The protagonist replied that he was the one asking the questions here. He put his hands in front of him and said, "Okay, he'll tell you everything now." His father said that the Emperor could arrive in Yancheng within a month, so he shouldn't cause trouble during that time. The protagonist asked, "What about the time? The route?" He thought that if he answered him, he would kill him. He had to find a way to get him out of the kitchen. Then he smiled and said, how could he know such information? He suggested going to his father's study. He would find out the answers to his questions there. The MC thought that he was deliberately trying to lure him out. If he wasn't killed, it would be bad. Then he swung his spear and asked, does he think he is so important? After all, he is the only one who can get into the office. He shouted in fear that he can not only show him the letter, but also a set of secret techniques. He will give it to him. He must not kill him. The protagonist approached his face and asked, what kind of techniques? He spread his arms out to the sides and replied that the book was called Secret Combat Techniques. Father often practices from this book. Very good techniques. The protagonist thought that the title was very impressive. Then he grabbed his interlocutor by the collar and said that he must show the way. Just no tricks. Sometime later in Guoyan's office, MC took the book and asked, such an important thing and not even locked? The young master replied that no one else comes here. The protagonist thought, what kind of book is this? It does not talk about weapons, not about techniques. Cultivating secret techniques. One must have excellent intuition. Where is the secrecy here? And then he slammed the book shut and asked, that's it? Isn't the book too thin? He waved his hands in fear and suggested, maybe there was something in the secret room too? The protagonist said, but no tricks. He agreed with him. And then they went out into the courtyard, and the young master thought that Lin was standing behind him, and he would do this until he got what he wanted. He needed to find a way to get rid of him. The only one who could help him in this situation was Wen. If father wasn't in the study, he must be in the main hall. He needed to get there, then he would definitely survive. Then he looked ahead and saw Wen. Seeing the young master, he bowed and noticed that something was wrong. He was glad that he finally understood. And then Wen said, sir, don't bother. He knows that he is an older man, and also married, and the sir was surprised, asking, "What is he talking about?" But the next second, the protagonist's spear pierced his chest and he fell to the ground. Wen shouted, "Murderer!" He grabbed the hilt of his sword and ran to attack, shouting that the master is in danger. "There's a murderer here!" The protagonist, seeing him approaching, only grinned and swung his spear, shouting that this won't work with him. The young master's body crashed into his opponent. At that moment, the protagonist felt the presence of Guo Yan and thought, he'll finally go for him. Then he looked forward in surprise, seeing his opponent's attack, but he didn't have time to react and flew back, after which he shouted that he must not miss the opportunity to kill him. Yan charged again and kicked him, sending him flying again. The protagonist, grinning, said that he must not stop. Such power will not destroy him. After that, Yan punched him in the face and, perplexed, shouted, "Why did he kill his son?" He answered that good must always win, and since the universe does nothing, he himself will decide everything. With these words, he spun his spear in the air, his opponent pressed himself to the ground and, dodging the attack, jumped back. Then MC approached him again and swung his weapon, but Yan spun his hand and, finding himself close to him, said that after his death, he will hang his body on top of the city gate and expose it to the sun for 10 days, so that even his son from the sky can see everything. After that, he attacked the enemy with his fist again. And at that moment, his subordinate ran up to Yan. The protagonist, with the last of his strength, said, "One more time." Yan cut the protagonist's hands. Wen, at that moment, holding the body of the young master, said that he was afraid that the Lord would not leave his son's killer alone. He believes that he will make him suffer. Then he shouted, "And now the legs." MC jumped forward and thought that he was not going to kill him. He wants to torture him. Okay, he won't play along. He then said that his mouth was dry. Yan noticed that he was interesting. He could even talk. He swung his weapon again, but the protagonist said, "Heavenly demon, body." A powerful aura covered his body, and he was very close to his opponent, who thought that he was supposed to die. He spun in the air, pushing off his opponent's body, and shouted, "There's an exit. This is bad. He's going to escape." But suddenly, the protagonist hit his head on a protruding well with all his might. Wen, perplexed, asked what he was doing. The ruler walked up to him and said, "Scumbag." He escaped in front of so many people. He then ordered his subordinates to run to the Chow family. They must exterminate the entire family. He then turned to Wen and told him to find him alive or dead. He accepted his order. Meanwhile, near the river outside the city, Song, he looked at the river and saw the protagonist's body, and was surprised and ordered it to be pulled out. 3 days had passed since the incident. Rumors spread like this. Mr. Guo died heroically in a fight with Lin. Almost everyone was praying for Lin, whose whereabouts remained unknown. Xu Yue, passing by the announcement, thought he had already managed to enlist support once. Would everything go smoothly this time? In addition, his condition was more important. The protagonist's body was covered in abrasions and bruises, and was also bandaged in several places. When he woke up, he was surprised. What was going on? Was he not dead? He looked at his bandaged arm and thought that his wounds were very painful, and yet, was this all real? Song, he stood next to him and said that he had heard about his deeds. Everyone is responsible for their own actions he cannot thank. The protagonist indignantly rose and began to shout. Why did he save him? Did he ask for such mercy towards himself? He put him back on the bed and told him not to talk. He understands everything. Then he covered his mouth, and the MC thought, what does he understand? Are you trying to treat him? He doesn't need such an assistant. Then Song asked, is he okay? He replied that he should let him go and not treat him. The bandit leader thought, maybe he just doesn't want to drag them to the bottom? Even on the verge of life and death, he doesn't forget about others. Then he grabbed the protagonist's bandaged hand. He shouted that it hurts. Song He, leaning towards him, said that he will not sit back and watch a man die before his eyes. As long as he is alive, there is still hope for a cure. He knows that now everything hurts, but he must not give up. And then he let go of his hand, and the protagonist thought, God, he has to save him from Song He's hands. Then the bandit leader shouted in alarm, have his wounds become more serious? He must hold on. Then he looked at the system window which said mortality grade B+. Points received for death matters 26. Skill consumption 53. Weekly resurrection 3 out of 5. Current points 14. Skills: Fist of Immortality, Continuation, Military Spear, Study, Great Law of Heavenly Demon Retribution, Intermediate Strength, Acquaintance. Other rewards: Full Cycle of Chi Blood. He thought, although it took longer, in the end he still managed to die. But this legendary death improved the grade. Fortunately, he also reached the 7th rank in Strength. He noticed that after resurrection, he felt like about 10 years had already passed. He was determined to continue on his way, but how long he would last was unknown. At that moment, several people were hiding behind the bushes and watching him. He suddenly appeared next to them and asked who. One of the guys was surprised. How did he end up here? His comrade was surprised. Who is he? And what is he doing here? The protagonist sat down next to them and thought, it seems that after each resurrection, he becomes a little older than before. Then he stood up and said that his name is Qiao Sen. He came here to find his son, Lin. Have they seen him? One of the guys, turning to his comrades, said, is this Lin's father? So young? He looks like he's no more than 30. The protagonist thought, here comes the effect of longevity. Sister Yushui said that the effect of the Fist of Immortality will be very obvious. And thanks to the use of techniques, his longevity has also increased. Soon he will become even stronger. Then he advised the guys to go to bed early and wake up early, train hard and use magic to protect their bodies. So, will they take him to see his son? Sometime later, Shanghai Medical Center, MC looked at his body and said to Song Hee that his son died a hero, so he has nothing to worry about. The dead are finished. He had to hold on to the living. Guo Yan had killed his son. He wouldn't let it go. The bandit leader thought it was no wonder Brother Qiao was so determined, just like his dad. Then the protagonist said that he could see that he was thinking about others despite being a bandit. He wouldn't want to discuss cooperation with him. He suggested working together to help people live. He said that it sounded familiar, and the protagonist thought that now he could fight him. But the ruler wasn't alone in the mansion, so he would need help. It would be great if Song Hei could help get rid of Yan, but he was prone to absurd behavior. Just like Lin, well, people came first anyway. The bandit leader then said that he was glad that he knew at first glance that he was no ordinary bandit. But he was unable to enter Yan's mansion. The protagonist leaned over to the body and said that in that case, he should find it once he made a decision. He asked him to wait. What is he doing? He threw his body over his shoulder and said, didn't he say that the Yan people are looking for his son's body? He wants to protect them. First, he will take him away from here so as not to interfere with their further plans. Song Hee was surprised. What? He was going to send Lin Yan's body? He wanted to hang his body on the city gate. That would only hinder his brother from resting in peace. He asked, really? In that case, his son's corpse would be the perfect bait. He had to force Yan to leave the mansion. The bandit leader shouted indignantly, but he was his son. He turned around and said that he wanted to kill Yan so much that he would even use his own son as bait. Song Hee sighed, and then said no, he was proud of him. He would take care of Lin's body. So he had better wait for good news and keep a low profile. He replied, okay. And then he thought, now his plan was becoming clearer. All that was left was to figure out how exactly to kill Yan, and how he could further improve his evaluation. Meanwhile, in the office of Yan's mansion, a pigeon flew to the window. Yan noticed the bird, and then unfolded the attached letter and thought, even the martial arts clan couldn't find Lin's body. Were Mu and Lin just pretending when they said they had a great family behind them? Had they been lying all this time? At this moment, his subordinate shouted, Lord, they found Lin's body. A doctor from Panshan City found a body floating on the river. He saw the wanted poster and immediately reported to Yan. Standing up from his seat, he shouted, a corpse. He must see it. After a while, he opened the coffin and confirmed that it was it. His subordinate said that it was said that Lin lived for several days with the doctor before dying in agony. Yan ordered that the doctor be checked. Tomorrow he will personally hang Lin's body on the gate. The next day, the guards stood near the closed gates and shouted that this was the master's order. The city was blocked. No outsiders allowed. The protagonist watched them from a high hill above. He clicked his tongue in irritation and said, what an aggressive old man. He's closing the city just to hang out a corpse. Is he afraid that someone else from the Qiao family will come to take revenge on him? But it doesn't matter. He already has a plan. Not long before, he pointed to the map, turned to the head of the bandits and said, let them work together. These will have to act separately. He asked them if he already had a plan. He replied that he needed his men to sneak into the city. At the moment Yan, they should start a diversion and distract the guards. He will go straight to him and slit his throat. Song Hee shouted in surprise he was going to attack Yan alone. He replied that it was so, and he had already decided, no need to convince him otherwise. He thought that he couldn't defeat him now. The bandit grabbed his hand and shouted that killing Yan was the most dangerous aspect of this plan. He was still taking it upon himself, trying to protect them. MC stopped him and said that he just didn't want them to shine brighter than him. In fact, he always liked to show off in front of the crowd. They shouldn't take that opportunity away from him. Besides, he wanted to ask him to bring him some scrolls from the Guo estate to find something interesting. He shouted, risk his life for this? He's even crazier than Mu and Lin. The protagonist then suggested going back to the plan. He said that he found his son in the river, right? He must have fallen into the well in the middle of the Yan estate. He thinks there should be a passage there that leads right into the mountains. Tomorrow he will use this, so no one will notice them. In the present, Song Hei, holding the map, looked at the steamer and said that it really is here. Then he put his hand forward and shouted, friends, now they will infiltrate the Yan estate and help Mr. Qiao kill this thief. They are moving out. The bandits accepted his order, and they set off. Meanwhile, the protagonist stood on the edge of the cliff and, warming up his joints, said that Songhee's team should have found a passage by now. Then it's time for him to move out too. The height is just right. If he jumps from here, he will be deader than dead. After that, he pushed off the edge and flew down, called the system and ordered it to revive him at the point he set earlier. Sometime later, in the outer area of the city, the protagonist picked up the boards from the floor and said, "What a wonderful function." He was able to respawn right in the city, so the closed gates are no obstacle for him. He looked at the hidden spheres and said, "Yan, he is already coming." A few hours later, Yan rode forward on his horse. The citizens present were surprised. Isn't this young Master Guo's funeral procession? Why aren't they wearing mourning clothes? What is going on in the city? Then the ruler ordered the coffin to be opened and the corpse to be pulled out. One of his subordinates kicked the coffin lid, opened it, and grabbed the corpse by the hair, lifting it into the air. The citizens whispered in surprise, "Who is this? What a terrible death. But he doesn't look like young Guo. Isn't this the hero who hit the young master?" Indeed. Yesterday, someone named Lin invaded Guo's estate. It must be him. Jan Lang thought irritably, this is not a funeral ceremony, but a demonstration. He is threatening them all with this act. Even if there were such capable and noble people in the future, they would not dare to oppose him. The nobleman opened his fan and was surprised. A hero? Are they talking about this Chow? He deserved to die for breaking into his master's estate and killing his beloved son. Several young men shouted, for breaking into someone else's house and doing whatever he wanted there? But Yan did exactly the same thing. Why is no one talking about him breaking the laws? People are dying of hunger all over the city, and the ruler is doing nothing about it. If they are talking about justice, he should be executed first. The nobleman pointed his hand at them and shouted, "Ungrateful thieves! What right do they have to gossip about the laws and threaten their master? They must be calmed down." Then his subordinates began to attack the residents. They shouted indignantly. They mock the exhausted residents, blockade the city for personal revenge, raise the price of food to incredible heights. Heaven will punish them. The nobleman said that it was their own fault that they were starving. Maybe they should work more? The stables of the inner city were short of workers to clean up the manure. How could that not be their income? They should not come closer. He did not want his clothes to stink of their poverty. Or maybe it was even more profitable for pathetic peasants like them to die as soon as possible. The next second, a piece of his hair fell off his head. An MC running forward shouted just like their beloved Qiao. His hair! The villagers fell on him and started kicking him. They shouted that he was a scoundrel. One of his subordinates approached Yan and reported that there was some kind of commotion. He replied that it did not matter. It was just a group of peasants. Tomorrow, they will catch the couple and hang them on the wall as a deterrent. The next second, his body was pierced by the protagonist's spear, and he fell to the ground. The subordinates crowded around him and excitedly shouted that this was an attack. "We must protect the master." Yan put his hand to the wound and thought that he barely dodged. If he had hesitated for even a moment, this spear would have pierced his head. Then the protagonist stood in front of him and, surrounding his body with a powerful aura, said that he not only killed his son, but also dared to bring his corpse to public display. For this bloodthirsty act, the Chow family will repay him 1,000-fold. Yan looked at him in surprise and shouted, "Lin? He's not dead?" "No, this cannot be." The protagonist pushed off the ground and resolutely ran forward, shouting that he was wrong. He is his father, Qiao Sen. The ruler was confused. Another Qiao. How many of them were there? And they thought that the Qiao family did not exist? Then he shouted to his guards, "What are they waiting for? They must kill him." MC, smiling, shouted that they must attack. They cannot even think about giving in. The protagonist rushed into battle, attacking the warriors. One of them, swinging his sword, shouted that he must die. MC turned around and pierced his body with his spear. The warrior, turning to the archers, shouted, "Fire!" Many arrows flew at the protagonist, but he swung the spear in front of him, scattering arrows in different directions. Then the warrior ordered to hold the line. The protagonist swung his spear and, throwing it forward, smashed several warriors. One of the guards shouted, "Who is this monster?" He easily destroyed their line. His colleague shouted, "Why is he panicking? They haven't even sent the strongest yet." Wen, holding the master, shouted, "Don't retreat. They must continue the fight." Yan thought, damn, is no one in the Qiao family afraid of death? Why doesn't this mad dog give up? Besides, this Sen is incredibly similar to Lin. Even between a father and son there can't be such a resemblance. MC, turning to him, shouted, "Old thief. You will not leave here alive." Wen ran to attack and declared that he would detain him. Then he took out his weapon from its sheath and attacked the protagonist, but he managed to put a spear in front of him and shouted, "He came to avenge his son. What does this have to do with him?" He replied that he should shut up. His son killed his master's son. He deserved to die. He replied that this piglet mocked the villagers. His son only did him a favor. Wen shouted that he should not insult the young master. The protagonist chuckled. So he's the Guo family's watchdog? Do they feed him better than everyone else? His opponent swung his sword and told him to shut up. The protagonist then pointed a spear at him and shouted that he was already exhausted. With that, he pierced his shoulder and Wen grabbed the spear and said that he would not take another step forward, and for this he was willing to give his life. MC smiled and said, "Good dog. Too bad his master is such an idiot." One of the warriors said in surprise that Wen was a 7th grade warrior, but he couldn't hold out for even 10 seconds. His comrade told him not to worry, they still had a master. Yan at this point, turning to his subordinate, said that he tried well, and then took out his sword, and piercing Wen's body, also pierced the body of the protagonist. He looked at the sword in his chest in surprise and thought, damn, he outsmarted him. Okay, he won this time, but next time he'll be dead. After that, he fell lifelessly to the ground. Yan, with his arms at his sides, laughed loudly and shouted, against the city's ruler, he was a dud. Even if there were 1,000,000 people in the Qiao family, he would kill them all. No one could stop him. After a while, Mu, a 6th grade warrior, sat down on the stairs. He was told that he was being congratulated on reaching mortality rank A. He was allowed to freely distribute his points. Total deaths 30, lifespan reduction 30 years, lifespan remaining 58 years, additional reward for reaching rank A is 200 points. The system is updating, they wish him happy deaths. He shouted indignantly, what the hell, no one told him about lifespan reduction. So now he's really losing years of his life because the initial access period has passed? If he'd known earlier, he would have only invested in the Fist of Immortality. He was told that if he mastered the Fist of Immortality, he would be able to increase the quality and lifespan. If he invested all of that, the problem would be solved. He would be halfway to immortality. At least thank goodness for the high mortality rate, otherwise he would have been completely upset. And then he waved his spear and walked forward, saying that it was not the time to sit around here. Song He was waiting for him. He would deal with the reduction in lifespan after getting rid of Yan. Meanwhile, one of his subordinates reported bad news. Master, something is wrong in your estate. An unknown group of people appeared in the middle of the courtyard as if out of thin air. They took advantage of the lack of guards, killed everyone, and took control of the entire estate. Yan ordered everyone to be called immediately and go to the estate. Then he looked at the enraged residents who were shouting that he must not leave. They must avenge the hero Qiao. Yan must be killed. The ruler clenched his teeth in anger and said, pathetic bugs, kill them. No one can be left alive. The archers fired arrows, aiming them at the residents. But at that moment, the protagonist arrived in time and flew forward with lightning speed, deflecting all the arrows. Yan, perplexed, asked, Sen? No, how is this possible? He killed him with his own hands. The protagonist walked towards him and told him to prepare for death. The enraged villagers ran after him and shouted, forward! For the hero Qiao, they must kill Yan and take over the city. The warrior, turning to his brother, said that the force was not on their side. What should they do? Turning around, he shouted in surprise, where did everyone go? Is this Qiao even a human or a ghost? He is not ready to risk his life for such a meager payment. Their citizens are so poor, and now the rulers order them to be killed? He is worse than a monster. He joined the guards to protect the peace of this land. If he kills innocent people, he will not be able to look his parents in the eyes. That's right. He even finished off Wen, who blindly followed him for years. What will happen to them then? To hell with him. Yan pointed his sword at them and shouted, they cannot escape. Anyone who disobeys the order will be executed. But the next second, MC was already very close to him and pointed his spear at his opponent. Then he shouted that this was the result of his actions. He was going to die now. Yan shouted indignantly, really? He thought he could defeat him? Then he pushed away the protagonist's spear, and he thought in surprise, incredible energy. He was so strong even after being wounded. The ruler shouted that this was his fault. He destroyed everything he had built over the years. He pierced the protagonist's body and shouted that he would kill him and every idiot from his filthy family. And then he cut the protagonist's body in several places, and when he knelt down, he raised his sword up and shouted that it was over. He had to die. With these words, he pointed the blade at the protagonist's head, but he grabbed the blade with his hand, stopping it. Yan was perplexed, caught the sword with his bare hands. Did he already figure out his technique? It was impossible. Too little time has passed. The protagonist replied that if this were their first fight, he really wouldn't have been able to handle it, but this was their third meeting. The third. He then pierced the ruler's body. Yan, kneeling down, realized what was happening and said, what a fool he was. He wasn't some Sen, he was Lin. The protagonist then raised his spear up, and the joyful villagers shouted, Yan is dead. His killer is the hero Sen. They continued chanting his name. The protagonist grinned, then fell to the ground. He thought it was just perfect. He was dying to the applause of the crowd. He thought it was worthy of another A rank. At that moment, Song He ran up to him and shouted worriedly, is he okay? He picked him up and assured him that he didn't have to worry. This time he would be able to save the hero's life, he promised. MC thought he should let him go. There was no need to save anyone here. Sun Hee? What a callous, heartless idiot he is. MC sat on the bed in annoyance, and Song Hee circled around him saying, Uncle Chow, he's I? His body is incredible. He recovered so quickly. Really, there's something wrong with his face. Is he upset about something? Song Hee sighed and lowered his head and said, his chi channels are completely disrupted, and there's not even a tenth of his internal energy left. It will take a long time to fully recover. Their city is lagging behind in medical matters. It will take him time to find a cure. Song Hee grabbed Chow Mu's hand and told him not to despair. He'll do anything to cure him. MC frowned and thought, he's asking, not that. He'll feel better if he doesn't touch him at all. It's good that he can escape. Chow Mu adjusted his kimono and said that he wants to get some fresh air. Song Hee asked, Uncle Chow, does he want to find a body? MC turned around, puzzled, and asked, body? What body? He thought, oh no, he forgot that his body was lying on the street. Song Hee replied, well, he was kidding. Uncle Chow is so smart, he asked someone to pretend to be himself to fool Goyang. No need to worry, they buried him. The city will not forget his noble sacrifice. They planted chrysanthemums on his grave, and he will never need ritual money. Chow Mu laughed and said, how sweet of them. He asked, by the way, are there any martial arts clans around the city? Song Hee replied that as far as he knew, there weren't any. But there were still a couple active in Heian Prefecture. MC asked again, Heian Prefecture? Isn't that in the north? Song Hee replied, exactly. Chow Mu thought, now he understood why he was drawn to the north ever since he started learning the legendary martial art. So the Chow family should be there. He stood up and said, great. Then he will go to Heian Prefecture, and Song Hee should take care of the city. Song Hee asked, right now. But his wounds have not healed yet. Why not rest a little more? Chow Mu put his hand on his shoulder and said, it would hardly make a difference if he stayed here. But on the way to Heian, maybe he could find some medicine. Song Hee replied slightly disappointedly, that's right. MC thought that he just wanted to get rid of him quickly, his little misfortune. Song Hee asked Uncle Chow to wait. If he intended to leave, he could at least write him a letter of introduction. He had an acquaintance in that area named Shen Chin Hee. He's a government official, so he should be able to find a job for him without any trouble. MC turned around and asked in surprise, what? He thought he was a bandit. How could he have friends in the government? Is he a thief in law? Song Hee wrote a letter and replied, they used to work together a long time ago, but they wouldn't talk about it. Chow Mu put his hand to his chin and said, that's just like him. He's not a bandit, but he's not an honest citizen either. He just asked me to write that his name is Chow Mu. Chow Sen is Guoyan's killer. He doesn't want to attract too much attention to himself. Song Hee smiled and replied, of course. He handed over the letter and wished Uncle Chow a safe journey. MC took it and replied, he's a good guy. Song Hee, he'll repay him for his kindness. He offered to split their loot. He opened the chest and Song Hee said he couldn't believe he stole all this from the common people. He is really worse than a monster. MC pounced on the pile of coins and laughed happily. He shouted, what riches? He looked at Song Hee and said that he can take it all. Song Hee widened his eyes in surprise and asked, what, all of this? Chow Mu replied that many of the townspeople were dying of hunger. They couldn't leave things as they were. He asked him to spend the money on food for them. They would be grateful to him. MC stood up and said that the government would soon send a new manager. And he might even be worse than Guoyan. He put his hand on Song Hee's shoulder and said, so he should be the one to lead the city. He should use this to achieve his dream. Song Hee threw himself into his arms and shouted, Uncle Chow, he is so noble that he cares about his smaller brothers. His respect for him is like an inexhaustible turbulent stream. Chow Mu put his hand in front of him and said, that's enough already, he's not gonna leave empty-handed. He took out a book and said that he was taking this with him. Song Hee replied, that was a good choice. Endless Path of Immaculate Yang, it's an ancient technique. MC asked, is that true? He said to let him take a look. On the page of the book, it was written that in order to learn this technique, he had to watch 99,000 videos about tralalero tralala. Song Hee asked, Uncle Chow, he has a wife and children, right? It seems like this technique won't suit him. Chow Mu thought dissatisfied, what do you mean it won't suit him? It wasn't long ago that he was 15 years old. He can't lose even a drop of yang energy if he wants to practice this technique. How can a young man in his prime be able to endure this? Song Hee took out a scroll and asked, Uncle Chow, how about mortal body transformation? MC asked, what is this? Song Hee replied that it was a modern technique developed by a legendary warrior. It described many techniques of varying difficulty levels. At the very beginning, it detailed the art of makeup and techniques that could slightly change the length of bones. But if he managed to reach the end of the book, he would be able to unlock techniques that could change flesh. That way, he could become any person. Chow Mu asked, is such a powerful technique even possible? They had some good loot today. Song Hee nodded his head and replied that he was right, but the text was very complicated. It would take a long time to decipher it. Why don't they watch it together? He could always go to Heian. MC thought that he wanted to convince him to stay, but alas, he couldn't die here. He grabbed the scroll and ran away. He said that Mr. Wong had helped him a lot, it would be credited to him in the future. See you soon. Song Hee said that they would meet again someday, and then he would ask him to be part of his plan. After a while, MC ran into the house and threw open the door and shouted, "Sister Shui?" He looked around and asked, "Did she really leave this place?" At that moment, a woman's hands fell on his eyes and Shui asked, "And 7 days have not passed, where would she go?" Xiao Mu laughed and said that today is exactly the 7th day and he defeated that old man Guo Yan. He looked at her carefully and asked, "Shui, what's wrong with your appearance?" At the same time, she asked a question. "Xiao Mu, is he carrying a bag on his shoulder?" They stood in awkward silence, and then MC said, "Shui, he is going to Heian Prefecture to find the missing piece of the Immortal Fist." Shui asked again, "Heian Prefecture?" What a coincidence, she was also going there. Xiao Mu put his hand to his chin and asked, "Coincidence? Seriously? Isn't it because she misses him?" "She's just obsessed with him, she should confess." Shui screamed, "Not at all. There are a lot of immortal families in Heian Prefecture. It would be useful to get to know them." MC asked, "Is that true?" Shui started to leave and said that if he wants to, he can believe it, and if he doesn't want to, he doesn't believe it, and she went. Xiao Mu ran after her and shouted, "Shui, he was joking. No need to be angry, please." Sometime later, in Heian Prefecture, in Shen Qinhe's house, MC said that his name was Xiao Mu. He came to see him at the instruction of Mr. Wang. Shen Qinhe, an official of Heian Prefecture, asked, "Did he really recommend him? It says here that he is seriously injured, but he looks quite healthy." Xiao Mu replied that he walked for a long time. He thought that he had simply died on the way here, but he had managed to reach the initial level of the infinite path of immaculate yang and mortal body transformation. Qinhe asked, "Where is Master Wang now?" MC replied that he lived in the mountains and was extremely difficult to find. He had stumbled upon him by chance. Qinhe frowned and asked, "Should I recommend him after a chance encounter?" "Well, it doesn't matter. He wouldn't pry any further unless he himself was willing to reveal it." What a pity. His handwriting brings back memories. If it weren't for the medicinal recipes he wrote down, he would have died many years ago. Since he vouched for MC, he must be a reliable person. At the moment, they only needed scribes and constables. He could choose. Xiao Mu thought that as a constable, he would be able to move around the city freely, so he would be able to find out more about the martial clans and families. He put his fist to his palm and said that in that case, he wanted to be a constable. After a while, he came out and said that he was Xiao Mu, the new constable. The warrior put his hand to his lips and said, "Mr. Shen never had favorites. How did he become a constable so quickly?" The man asked, "Does he know this guy?" Suddenly, a loud scream was heard. "Silence!" Yin Hei, the head constable, said that they were all on the same team now. She asked the guys to be polite to MC. She suggested that they get down to business. They must have all heard about the Wu Chang monster case. All the warriors stared in fear, and MC thought, "Wu Chang? A monster?" Yin He said that it was rampant in the city and had already taken many lives. It was said that Wu Chang was a kind of monster that fed on the energy of death. It killed people, regardless of their position and social status. Many warriors tried to deal with this monster, but it was much stronger. Even the 5th and 6th grade fighters did not survive. They will have to work with the Xianqin clan. Xiao Mu asked, "Xianqin clan?" Yin He said that shortly after the Qiao family was exterminated, the Xianqin temple was built on their land. Now it is also known as the Xianqin clan. MC wondered what a coincidence. Most likely, the Xianqin clan has something to do with the association, since they were able to appropriate the Qiao family's lands so easily. Perhaps it is from them that he will be able to find out about the second part of the Immortal Fist. And if he is lucky, he will find other cultivation techniques as well. The guy grabbed his face and screamed, "Why are they being given something like this again?" The man said it was a thankless job. MC's eyes widened in surprise, and then walked up to the lone guard and asked, "Dude, why is everyone reacting like this?" The man asked, "Dude, they are just guards, what can they do with a monster? Their leader, she is the strongest of them, but even she has only reached the 7th grade. Xiao Mu asked, "So why are they being forced to do a job they are not qualified for? In fact, they might even die." The man asked, "What else can they do?" The State House listens to the immortals and everything, and they are the scapegoats in this situation. A voice suddenly rang out. "No need to worry." The Moon Fairy said it seems she arrived just in time. MC looked up in surprise, where the Moon Fairy from the Xianqin clan appeared. She landed on the ground and said that they don't have to fight the monster. They just need to track the creature down and report to her. But she can't do it without their help, dear constables. The boys cheered happily. "Thank you for worrying about commoners like them. Merciful Fairy. She must be sure, Lady Fairy. They will find the monster." "Yin," he said in a puzzled tone. "What enthusiasm." The man put his hand on her shoulder and sighed and said, "At least they are soberly aware of their capabilities." Being an errand boy, that's what they are good at. MC just widened his eyes and stood there silently, not understanding what was going on. He thought, such a task, a piece of cake for an immortal. Why can't she do it herself? Are they trying to deceive the State House? Shiji said that this monster feeds on the energy of death, so it will most likely be found near hospitals or prisons. If they don't find any traces there, they can use a group of dying people as bait. The warrior adjusted his hat and said that luring the monster out with living people was a bit too much. Shiji asked, they were going to die soon anyway. Why not serve the public before they died? Yinhe frowned and asked, but what was the immortal lady going to do after capturing the monster? Shiji replied that she would take the creature into her clan to subject it to heavenly punishment. For its sins, it would serve them for the rest of its days. Yinhe became angry and screamed loudly, heavenly punishment? This monster killed many innocent people, and after that it remains alive? Where's the justice in this? The murderer must pay with his own life. That is the law of their empire. Shiji replied that this law applies to commoners, not immortals. And monsters and demons are just under their jurisdiction. Yinhe cried out in irritation. MC raised his hand and asked to forgive him. He asked, what if they accidentally killed the monster when they found it? Yinhe turned around and looked at him and Shiji replied, she said it was too dangerous for them to fight the monster. They just needed to inform her and there would be no accident. Xiaomu approached her and asked, what should they do if it chased them and they had no time to inform her? They would have to fight back, right? And suddenly, by some miracle, they still managed to kill the creature. Would there be any rewards from the immortals then? For example, an entertaining tour according to her plan? The fairy replied that the lands of the immortals would not tolerate the feet of plebeians. Xiaomu frowned and thought, they are arrogant idiots. It seems he will have to find another way to explore Xiantian. Shiji waved her hand and said, I guess that's it. She gives them 3 days to find the monster. She flew away on her magic origami, and the man asked, Chief, what are they going to do? Do they really have to collect the dying people? Yinhe replied that they don't have to obey the orders of the immortals. She ordered them to explore the city, look under every stone. If they find anything, they should immediately report to her. She will deal with the rest. The guys screamed, yes, Chief. Yinhe asked to stay for a while, Xiaomu. She said that Mr. Shen has always been a common-sense person. If he accepted it, it means he has pretty good skills. Was he just bullying the fairy, or does he really have an idea on how to kill this monster? MC adjusted his hair and replied, Chief, she is overestimating him. He just asked her an obvious question. He frowned and asked, seriously? Xiaomu replied, of course. She told him to go get the others and he accepted it. MC turned around and thought, a monster that feeds on death energy. He himself could become the creature's bait. Sometime later, in the eastern district of the city, in a tavern, a drunk immortal. The gentleman stood at the window and watched the people, when suddenly there was a knock on the door and he ordered them to come in. Chushin, the winged fish guard, appeared at the threshold and said that they had news about Wang Songhe. The man rubbed the ring on his thumb and ordered him to speak. Chushin said that their spy assigned to Shen Qin. He reported that someone named Qiao Mu showed up at the state chamber, where he was appointed constable. He had a letter of recommendation from Wang Songhe with him, but he did not reveal the details. Most likely, Qin He does not know anything either. There are rumors that Song He could have taken the path of an immortal. The gentleman put his cup down on the saucer and said that this was nonsense. He hates immortals with every fiber of his soul. Why would he become one of them? Chushin replied that people change. He had remained silent for decades, and now he suddenly recommended someone. So this Qiao Mu is also not an easy person. The gentleman asked to arrange a meeting for them. After a while, there were girls sitting on the floor in the room. Lin Lin said, Yuxue, she was still a child when they last saw each other. 10 years have passed, but fate brought them together again. Yuxue said, Elder Lin Lin, she? Lin Lin interrupted her and said that she knew what happened to the Qiao family. The path of the immortals, or the path of martial arts, in essence, they are not much different. She was born with exceptional spiritual perception. Wouldn't she like to develop it? And if she is so reluctant to join the immortal clans, why doesn't she stay with her? Yuxue replied, Okay, Elder. She wondered, what is Qiao Mu doing now? At this moment, MC was sitting behind bars and picking his nose. The guard ordered him to behave properly. With such tricks, even 10 lives would not be enough for him. Qiao Mu told him not to worry. He was not going to run away. He chuckled and thought that this was exactly the place for him. Earlier in the Jade Tea House, a man was telling a story, and then the hero Chao Sen shouted that he was a warrior and his path lay only forward. And after these words, he killed Guoyan with just one swing of his spear. And then he spectacularly walked off into the sunset. MC was sitting at the table and asking, why do they care about him? There is a monster walking around the city. It would be better if they talked about more pressing matters. He twirled a small seed between his fingers and thought. He thought that he would be able to ask people about the monster, Then he would find the creature sooner and die happily. But instead, he had already wasted half an hour gossiping about himself. Suddenly, a gentleman came up to him and said, "The constable of Haiyan Prefecture is listening to fables in a tavern during working hours. Is he neglecting his duties?" MC asked. "Is he sure he knows how he should work?" The gentleman smiled and said, "Not at all, he was just joking." He thought that this was far from an ordinary person. Even from his aura, you can tell that he's a big shot. The guy behind him's energy is also incredible. He must be a martial artist too. Xiao Mu yawned and asked, "If they like to spy on other people's affairs so much, why doesn't the emperor tell him what he should do?" Chushin cried out in annoyance. "Insolent!" The gentleman raised his hand and said calmly, "His assistant is a bit harsh in his expressions. He is very curious. In his opinion, what kind of person does the emperor seem to be?" MC frowned and thought, what kind of person? One who is better off dead. He still hasn't managed to kill him. He was supposed to pass through Yancheng, but for some reason he never showed up there. Why didn't they put a bounty on him after killing someone like Guo Yan? He was so hoping that the court would sentence him to death. He thought that they were probably government officials. And then his death would be known throughout the empire. The rating must be incredible. Chalmu jumped up from his seat and shouted, what kind of person did he see the emperor as? The ruler of a millennium. Everyone around turned and looked at him questioningly. The lord fanned his lips and asked, seriously? Isn't he overestimating him? MC smiled and replied, not at all. They remember what imperial nickname he ascended to the throne under, right? Yongtae, which means endless peace. And the first thing he did was go lick the boots of the immortals. After this, they will be ashamed to even threaten them. What a truly endless peace. Chushin's eyes widened and thought, did he dare call the lord a coward? The lord said that immortals are an indestructible force. Even the strongest martial artists didn't stand a chance against them. The 100,000-strong army was wiped out. Maybe the emperor saw the whole picture of what was happening and so he had to compromise? MC asked again. Does he mean that he has some kind of cunning plan that no one can prove, right? When he is nothing, he gets hit on the head. Compromises are for the weak and helpless. Although it is one thing when he retreats to accumulate strength and strike back, and another when he agrees to become their watchdog. But what in the end? Do they remember Yanshan? The people there were dying of hunger. The ruler knew about it, but did nothing. The state salary is no better. The emperor claims that he rules on behalf of the heavens. However, ordinary people are nothing more than meat to him. He is ready to dispose of them if the immortals so desire. The people are suffering, but the state house can do nothing to help them. Who knows how many more cities like Yancheng are there? Although, what else can you expect from the son of heaven who puts himself above other people? Chushin slammed his hand on the table in irritation and shouted, what kind of ridiculous nonsense is this? Chao Mu stamped his foot and screamed, what's wrong? Everyone knows that the emperor dances to the tune of the immortals. He built residences for them in every major city. Isn't that sucking up? Chushin told him to shut up and asked how he dared to insult his majesty. The man asked where this fearless youth came from. The storyteller frowned and said that this was much more interesting than his tea stories. The gentleman frowned and thought, he was asking for trouble too, obviously. Did he really expose him and do this on purpose? As far as he knew, the former Minister of Justice Song He was of the same opinion. He preferred to die than to surrender to the immortals. However, now things are exactly as he predicted, and this Chao Mu is with him. Chushin grabbed his sword and shouted, according to the laws of the empire, a person who insults the emperor must be beheaded. The lord thought, he should give MC credit, he is not a bad bully. He was able to infuriate even the eternally calm Chushin. Chao Mu pointed his thumb at himself and said that he will not go back on his words and is ready to take responsibility for them. The lord thought, it was as if he wanted to be killed. Suddenly the nobleman closed his fan in front of Chushin and told him to drop it. MC does not understand anything about government and just wants to attract attention. It's time for him to leave. Goodbye. MC's eyes widened in fear and thought, how is this possible? He got into filth up to his ears, and after this, he is going to let him go? He extended his hand and mentally asked him not to leave. He knows worse insults. A guard ran into the tea house and shouted, who is Chao Mu here? MC turned around and said, there he is. The guard said irritably, someone reported that he dared to publicly insult the emperor if he did not go with him of his own free will. Chao Mu interrupted him and asked a question. Is he arresting him? Yes, please, he will not resist. After a while, he held on to the bars and asked, guys, when are they going to execute him already? Are they really going to wait until autumn? Why would he waste their taxes? He asked to do it right now, and preferably in public. He likes a big crowd. The guard asked, what kind of person would ask to kill himself quickly? Does he really have a protege who can pull him off the chopping block? The man asked again, what kind of protege could hush up a public insult to the emperor? He slapped the bars with his whip and shouted. He told him not to make a fuss. Everyone here is a death row prisoner, and he will not escape. MC sat down on the floor and thought, death row then. Well, at least he's in the right prison. The monster feeds on the energy of people like him. Suddenly he saw a man in the cage in front of him, coughing loudly. A shadow of a cat appeared in front of him and meowed. The old man looked at him and asked, "Kitty, how did you get here?" The little ginger kitten meowed back at him, and the old man picked him up and stood up. He said that with the aura that had spread here, sweeping this place away would be no better than hell. The local rats were unclean. The cat would die if he ate them. He decided to let him out of here, when suddenly he fell to the floor. MC jumped up in fear and asked, "Uncle, is he okay?" The old man gave a thumbs up and said, "Perfectly fine." He grabbed his old muscles and said that he was once known as a holy thief. He stole from the rich to give to the poor, and that made him famous all over the world. Xiaomu said that his injury looked serious. The old man screamed, "This is nonsense. How could a holy thief get hurt just by tripping a little?" When he was younger, he was able to last for about 100 rounds against an incredibly strong martial artist, a member of a great family. If he hadn't made a stupid mistake, he would still be known as a hero. MC frowned and thought that he understood. The old man was going through a dying crisis. "But stop screaming already, uncle." The old man spoke. He once robbed a rich merchant and that carriage when he was just a kid. He rolled his eyes and fell down dead, and MC screamed in fear. "Is there anyone there?" An uncle fell down. The cat walked up to the old man and meowed, and then surrounded his corpse with dark energy. Xiaomu screamed, "What is he doing?" He broke down the bars and ran to the old man, touching his nose with his finger. He thought the old man was dead. Constable Yin said that the death energy increases the monster's strength. And if he is right, this is Wu Chang, that same cat. MC beckoned him with 2 fingers and ordered him to eat him. The cat looked at him and meowed, and MC screamed, "Does he like the death energy?" The cat screamed loudly and then rushed at MC, who swung his fist and screamed, "Great, let the fight to the death begin." The cat jumped on his hand and began to rub cutely. Xiaomu grabbed his tail and ordered him to leave. Shouldn't he be a bloodthirsty monster? What is there to be cute about? Has he completely lost his shame? What kind of expression is that? What a suck-up he is. MC wondered, was he pestering him just because he was going to die soon? Suddenly a voice was heard in the passage, a prisoner surnamed Qiao. They asked him to follow them. MC quickly ran in front of them and grabbed the broken bars. The guard waved his hand and said, "Sir, this man has publicly insulted His Majesty." He asked to be sure no criminal has ever escaped from this dungeon. Xiaomu smiled and asked, "So when will he be executed? Is there any way to speed up the process?" "He can't wait." The man lowered his head guiltily and said, "Sir Qiao is so funny, there was a misunderstanding. He will now pull him out from behind bars." MC threw it in the air and shouted, "From behind bars? Are they kidding me? He tried so hard to get here, and now they want him to leave?" The guards froze in the hanging silence, and then the man said that it was their fault for not handling the case properly. Even if he managed to escape, no one would stop him. He turned around and irritably ordered that the handcuffs be removed from Sir Qiao immediately. The guard ran in fear and replied, "Yes." The man looked at him and thought, MC would have enough strength to break the bars, but he still didn't try. Such a calm behavior after publicly insulting the emperor was only possible if he expected a high-ranking person to come for him. You can't touch a man with such powerful connections. Xiaomu said, "One question." The man's eyes widened and asked, "What kind?" MC asked, "Will they bury this old man?" He hit his head and died. The man smiled and said that he had a kind heart. He could rest assured that they would give him a proper ceremony. MC looked around and thought, since this was over, where did the cat go? After a while, Shinhee screamed. He had only joined the service 2 days ago, and he had already been arrested and in his constable's uniform. He forgot that all his actions directly reflected on the State House. Xiaomu put his hand on his heart and replied, "Sir, he knows. He is a good man. He allowed himself to be arrested so that an investigation could be conducted in prison. He asks to believe him. He did not act out of selfish motives." "Chin," he replied calmly, "I see." And a second later he yelled in irritation, "Does he think he's an idiot? In his opinion, the only way to go to prison is to insult the emperor?" Suddenly their conversation was interrupted by Yinhei, who coughed loudly and said, "Xiaomu, Lord Sen had to use his authority to get him out of prison. He even had to visit that idiot, or rather official Lu, and not empty-handed." Shinhee sighed in displeasure and said that if it weren't for Lord Wang, no one would have taken care of him. MC bowed and thanked the master. He thought that he and Songhee were birds of a feather. They just wouldn't let him die in peace. Shinhee waved his hand and said, "They've moved on. He just needs to be more careful about his actions and words next time." He turned around and thought that, although he tried to get Xiaomu out, official Lu told him that the order to do so had already been passed on by the Winged Fish Guard. This faction is directly under His Majesty. So this is an order from the Emperor himself. Is this guy somehow related to him? Did the Emperor himself ask to insult himself in public? Could the Emperor be one of them? He presented a strange picture and his expression changed, which alerted MC. He lowered his head and said, Okay, they will get back to business. Did he see a monster? Xiaomu showed a gap with his hands and said, yeah, it looks like a tricolor kitten, white, black, and yellow. About this size, it appeared next to the deceased prisoner. It absorbed the energy of death and grew to a size larger than a human. However, it did not attack anyone. Yin, he clenched her fingers into a fist and said, Wu Chang appears next to the deceased, so this is a hit. On some of the victims, there were marks like claws, just like a cat or tiger. MC frowned and said, maybe Wu Chang has nothing to do with it. Yin He asked, what was he talking about? Xiaomu replied, what if Wu Chang absorbed the energy of someone who had already died but didn't kill anyone himself? Yin He widened her eyes and asked, does he mean there was another monster? After a while, the girls were fighting the monster. One of them screamed, Sister Lunar, they can't handle Lady Beechin's flying tiger. It gets out of hand as soon as Shiji leaves. Without her, they're finished. Shiji suddenly appeared behind them and irritably ordered them to stop whining. It's their duty to protect the sacred animals. If Lady finds out that they can't handle her pets, they'll be in big trouble. She walked up to the tigers and thought with a smile on her face, idiots, how can she show her superiority if the tiger doesn't go wild? It's lucky that Lady Saint will be gone for another month. If he can catch this Wu-Man monster for her, she can advance quite a bit in her career. After a while, Yin He was standing on the street and saying that the purpose of their operation was to catch an unpredictable monster. Last night, Constable Chow saw the creature in the western prison, so they need to concentrate their search in the western part of the city. They can begin. After a while, MC was walking down the street when suddenly a shadow appeared behind him and a kitten attacked his leg, biting it. Xiaomu squatted down and said that ever since the prison, he had felt someone's constant presence behind him. He stroked the cat and said how clingy it was. Is it an endless ration for him? Its sniffs remind him of Sister Shui, but she is much cuter than a clingy kitten. Suddenly, Yin came out from around the corner and asked Xiaomu, what is he doing here? This cat. The kitten immediately took off and ran away, leaving a trail behind it. MC rushed after it and shouted, this is the demon he was talking about. It is heading for the western borders of the city. Yin He rushed after it and ordered to block the creature on the right. Oh no, it turned left. It jumped down, no need to lag behind. Suddenly they stopped, and Xiaomu looked around and thought, did they lose the cat? No, he is too nimble, he could hide from them in the first second. It was as if he deliberately led them here. Yin He said, this place. MC asked, leader, does she know what this is? Yin He said that this is the territory of a newly formed gang. This is the Crimson Waters. Their leader is called Jiang Long. He is a 6th class warrior, he cannot be underestimated. MC smelled a bloody stench and put his hand to his nose. Earlier, in the Crimson Water courtyard, Jiang Long, the leader of Crimson Water, greeted the Immortal Lady. It was an honor for them to serve Xiantian, one of the 9 great immortal clans. If the lady helped him join her clan, he would do whatever she asked. Shiji waved her hand and replied, of course he would have another chance. However, he was not the only one who wanted to join the Immortal clan, so she could not agree so easily. First, they would have to pass her test. She took out a small pouch, and Jiang Long asked, a test? She replied that the grade only showed the amount of his internal energy, but she wanted to see the level of his combat prowess. There was no need to worry, it was not that difficult, and should not be too difficult for him. Magic burst out from the pouch and created a huge winged tiger. Jiang Long said in fear, this? Shiji asked, are you scared? He can always give up even though his eternal life is at stake. Jiang Ling took a fighting stance and replied, no, Immortal Lady, she misunderstood. He is just afraid that he will accidentally kill them, but he will try to control himself. A little later, he was already lying on the ground, covered in blood, and begged Immortal Lady to help him. Shiji said, Wu Chang senses the energy of death and appears next to the dying man. He will definitely want to feast on the powerful energy of a 6th grade warrior. Okay, for now, she will let him live. If he dies, the energy of death will quickly dissipate. The tiger with a bloody muzzle looked in her direction, and she thought that after a bloody sacrifice, he usually calms down. Why now? Did this boar's energy really heat it up? At this moment, a cat meowed behind her. Shiji turned around and said, she knew he would appear. Let him climb here. She opened her pouch, and the tiger rushed towards the cat. Shiji thought, this is bad. The tiger cub will go berserk if this is found out. The cat jumped off the roof, followed by the tiger showing itself in front of the constables. Yin He screamed, up there. MC looked up and asked, demon tiger? Another one? Yin He rushed towards the gate and screamed, after her. She kicked the door open and said, they are too late. MC asked, what? Yin. He turned around and replied, this tiger, it is a monster raised by the Xiantian clan. Sacred animals are usually controlled by humans. Its temperament should be somewhere nearby. Xiaomu frowned and clarified, she means that all these murders are actually the work of the Xiantian clan? At this moment, he saw a cat falling, being chased by a tiger. He grabbed the little fluffy one and hugged it and ran away. He landed and said, a hero saves a kitten. This is great. Suddenly, a tiger appeared behind him, and Yin-hee grabbed his hand and pulled him along. She turned around and screamed, "The tiger demon is too strong, they can't handle the creature. She will distract the tiger for a while, MC should find reinforcements and hurry." At this moment, she threw Xiaomu forward, and a tiger appeared behind her. She thought she was finished, but she wasn't. MC swung and dealt a strong blow to the monster. He asked the boss to forgive him, he can't let her die in his place. Yin-hee screamed, "Xiaomu," she asked him to go get reinforcements. MC replied, "No boss, she'd better take care of it and leave the tiger to him." Chushin sat on a high branch of a tree and thought in surprise, "Are they crazy? They had time to escape. Great, now they will both die here. The Lord asked me to follow him. It will be bad if he dies here. If he sees anything strange, he should also immediately report it. But the real culprit behind all the murders so far is still here." Shiji said irritably, "Those terrifying constables, how dare they get in his way? Their death wish is simply astounding. In any case, to the tiger cub, 6th grade warriors are just a snack. Let him eat and calm down." Chushin clenched his jaws and thought, it is not in his majesty's interest to start a conflict with the immortals right now. If he acts impulsively, he might cause trouble. Well, he will have to wait for the right opportunity. The tiger got angry and tried to strike at MC, who jumped back with scratches appearing on his chest. He thought, what a power. One strike and his energy barrier is almost destroyed. If he dies from the creature's claws, the rating will be high. Come on, let him tear him apart. Suddenly, the tiger stopped and released an energy stream from its mouth. Xiaomu thought happily, "Great, God bless his mortal body." Yin-hee grabbed him, pressed him to her chest and screamed, "Why is he frozen? You need to dodge." MC thought, well, let him die in peace already. Yen. He said it's too strong. They won't be able to withstand the creature in a head-on collision. They'll have to rely on techniques to find the right moment to strike. Now she'll show him the shadow step technique. Let him watch carefully and remember it the first time. You need to direct the chi energy into your feet. Step through the air as if you were walking on smooth ground. Twist the chi energy, not allowing yourself to fall. Xiaomu thought, let him go before teaching him. Even the most brilliant disciple won't understand anything in this situation. Suddenly, the system window reported that the attraction had decreased, and he thought, did it work? Xiaomu flew to the side, and Yin-hee squeezed the hilt of the sword and struck at the monster. The sword shattered, and she thought that its internal energy was so strong that an ordinary blade was useless against a tiger. Yes, she can dodge with the shadow step for now, but it seems impossible to defeat the creature. If this continues, they will definitely die. Shiji smiled and said, they are overestimating themselves. This is a sacred animal. Neither water, nor fire, nor weapons can hurt it. You just have to accept the fact that they will be devoured. For mortals, this is even an honor. The system window reported that the loading of Shadow Step was complete, after which MC pushed off the ground and rushed towards Yin-hee. She saw him and screamed, he needs to run. He will not be able to defeat the creature. Xiaomu dodged the energy streams of the monster, after which the system window reported that the available points were 204. The points required for Shadow Step are 126. MC decided that it was time to cheat. He pushed off the ground and kicked the monster with his foot, destroying the layer of earth underneath it. Yin-hee and Chushin's eyes widened in surprise. Chushin thought, this blow is stronger than the abilities of a 6th-class warrior can allow. Could this be the great law of retribution of the heavenly demons? By combining the technique with fast movements, he increased the damage even more. He fights without paying attention to his physical condition. Who is this Xiaomu? Yin-hee stood behind him and thought, was her inherited technique always like this? He uses steps designed for hidden movement to launch fierce attacks. Has she been doing something wrong all this time? MC swung his sword and ordered him to die, when suddenly Shiji appeared behind him and ordered him to stop. This flying tiger, it is the spirit pet of the Xianxian clan elder. She ordered the creature to be handed over to her immediately. Xiaomu turned around and asked, what does he care about the Immortal clan? The terrifying monster has taken many innocent lives, and according to the law of the Empire, it is sentenced to death. He swung his sword and dealt the decisive blow. Chushin looked at this in surprise and thought, he killed a creature. Just like that? Why does some warrior dare to do something that even the Emperor does not dare? Shiji began to shake and said, he dared. MC picked up the sword that was dripping with blood and said, the direct killer has been punished. But the one who controlled him, who incited him to bloodthirsty deeds, at the cost of which human destinies were cut short, must also pay for her crime with her life. Shiji's eyes widened in surprise, seeing that the tip of the sword was pointing at her. Shiji said loudly in a dissatisfied voice that a pathetic human has no right to interfere in the affairs of immortals. He even dared to slander her? He is the one who deserves to die here. He walked up to her and asked if she could explain what she was doing here. Did she want to catch the monster or feed it? She created a paper crane and asked loudly why she had to justify herself to them. Not only did they disobey her orders, but they also dared to kill their elder's sacred pet. She began to fly away and loudly said that they would pay for this. Yin, he looked at her and said that someday they would be able to deal with immortals too. She was very surprised when she saw Qiao Mu fall to the ground and scream loudly. She walked up to him, lifted his head and asked loudly, "Is he okay?" He must look at her. She will do everything to save him. He lay on the ground and begged her not to save him. After a while, the cat sat on a tree and said with a happy look that this death energy is incomparable to anything. His stomach is about to burst with pleasure. What pure energy that constable had. He even saved him. This guy is special and he adores him. What a pity that tiger hurt him so badly. He followed him to the headquarters, but it was too late. Why can he only feed on death energy? As soon as he gets interested in someone, he soon dies. It seems that he is destined to be a loner cat all his life. At that moment, the main character fell to the ground next to the cat, which scared him very much. He sat up and asked why he was reborn on the top of the tree. The cat looked at him in surprise and thought, so he did not die? He jumped on him and made a very happy sound. He stroked the cat and asked, is he not going to let go of him? In that case, he will be his pet. He decided to look at his rating and asked, did he only get a B+? Why did he put in so much effort? The system reported that he had killed a scary monster and saved the lives of many citizens. He was a true hero. The points received for death were 26. The current number of points was 104. Weekly resurrection was 4 out of 5. Skills, Fist of Immortality 40%, Shadow Step 100%, Great Law of Heavenly Demon Retribution 40%, and more. Other rewards, stamina increased. MC looked at this with a thoughtful expression and asked, was the rank so low because the death was not public? However, that was not the problem. He would definitely have told the people about it. Shi Jie of the Xiantian clan allowed their monster to roam the streets and kill innocent people, and Constable Qiao Mu stopped it at the cost of his own life. Isn't this a heroic story? He thought that if only someone had not deliberately allowed the information to spread. Now I understand why that immortal was so arrogant. She knew that the state house would not dare to go against her clan. If the state was incapable of doing anything, he would take charge. Now he was no longer a constable. Every time he refined the immortal fist, his endurance would also increase, and therefore his lifespan, but for some reason his appearance had not changed for a long time. Had he really reached a balance? Death shortened one's lifespan, but cultivating the immortal fist would actually increase it. He asked with a smile, I wonder how long he had left to live now. He called the cat Wu Chan and said that he needed to change his clothes and go punish the criminal. After some time, in the Xiantian clan, the protagonist came to the entrance and asked, so the Chow family used to live here, right? There were quite a lot of pilgrims here. He noticed an old woman loudly saying that a few days ago, her son and fiancé were killed by a monster. Her granddaughter hid in the closet, but the experience had driven her crazy. She asks to be cured and promises to burn incense every day. The pilgrim asked her to be quiet and said that a 5th-rank official was praying in the temple right now. She should go to the end of the line. They had more important things to do than deal with her problems. The old woman knelt down and said loudly that they couldn't wait. She was all she had left. She was begging him to help her. The pilgrim said loudly that he had told her to go to the end of the line. Shi Jie came up to them and asked, did she say that this girl saw her son being killed by a monster? The old woman turned around, agreed, and said that her granddaughter had passed out from shock and had only woken up in the morning. Since then, she had been like this and hadn't reacted to anything. Was her soul really eaten by a monster? She looked at the girl and said that it looked like it. They should follow her. She would take care of her treatment. The old woman was happy about this and said that she was very grateful to her for this. MC stood in front of them and said that she shouldn't listen to her. She was the one who allowed these murders to happen in the first place. Shi Jie turned around with a very surprised expression and thought that he was killed by a tiger. How come he was unharmed? And what does he want? The people looked on and asked, is he talking about the monster? Wu Chang? He heard that many people died. The immortal from Xiantian is behind all this. Is this possible? However, this clan has protected their city for so many years. Shi Jie walked up to him and asked, he is Constable Qiao, right? As a government official, he should act officially. He accuses her of the murders committed by that monster, but does he have evidence? The rest of the people agreed and asked, how can he accuse someone without evidence? Some constable wants to arrest the Lady Immortal? Even the Emperor wouldn't dare to do such a thing. She said with a sly smile that he was accusing her of such a terrible crime because they had a disagreement in the past. As the legitimate representative of the Empire, he had no right to invade the Immortal's abode without causing destruction. Not only had he broken the law, but he had also tried to ruin her clan's reputation. How should she punish him for this? Suddenly, a girl pointed at her and said loudly that it was her. The old woman walked up to her and said that she had come back to life. Everything would be fine now. The people around saw this and began to quietly ask, Did this girl just point at the moon fairy? It seemed like he had heard something about the beasts of the Shantian clan. Did she really release a monster to hunt? If the clan elder found out about this, Shijie waved her hand, released a powerful gust of wind, and said loudly that they should be silent. How dare they mortals blame her? Did they want to die? She pointed at Xiaomu and said loudly that the representative of the state who caused all this chaos must pay with his life. He will not leave here alive. His comrades will also be punished. The protagonist said that, however, he is a representative of the state. His brother is named Chao Pifu. Since human laws cannot deal with immortals, then he will do it. He tried to hit her with his spear, but a swordsman stood in front of her and blocked this blow. He asked with a serious expression, how dare he attack his elder sister? He began to make many rapid strikes and said loudly that he will definitely kill him and show what their clan is capable of. MC said that this is fencing, which means he is a martial artist. However, why did he become a henchman of immortals? He said loudly that martial artists are only pitiful mortals, and in the Xiantian clan, he can achieve immortality. He released a powerful energy, causing his clothes to tear, and said loudly that killing him would increase his reputation, and then the elder would allow him into the inner part of the clan. He must see his technique, the great law of retribution of the demons of heaven. Immediately after that, Xiaomu punched him very hard in the face, and because of this, he slammed into the wall with a loud sound. He said with a small smile that he already knew about this technique. Shijie threw the talisman towards him, and with a big smile said loudly that he must die. The talisman exploded with fiery energy, but the protagonist immediately jumped to the side. Because of such a powerful flame, his spear melted. He noticed this and thought that it melted in a matter of seconds. Is this the power of immortal techniques? He noticed that his hand was touched by this flame, and he began to scream loudly in pain. Shijie looked at him from the side and asked how he felt about it. This is a bone-corroding talisman that the elder gave her. This flame destroys the soul and burns the bones. Just one touch will condemn him to hell. It will not stop burning until it turns him into ashes. This is his punishment for getting in the way of an immortal. Suddenly, MC walked towards her and asked, "This is an unquenchable flame, right? Let it burn. She will die today anyway." She looked at him with a frightened expression and loudly asked this madman, "Why can't he calm down?" He said with a smile that it was because she, an immortal, had committed so many evil deeds that she became even worse than a real demon. Even if he died, he would prove that there was still justice in this world. He challenged her. He grabbed her, and she began to scream loudly in pain. She thought with a surprised expression that this was impossible. She was an immortal after all. How could she die at the hands of this pitiful man? Wouldn't the elder brothers and sisters come down to help her? Xiaomu was still engulfed in powerful flames and thought that it was good that he had used up all of his immortal fist points. Otherwise, he wouldn't have survived the flames. However, his body had still reached its limit, but now she couldn't hurt this old woman and her granddaughter anymore. Moreover, he had killed an immortal in front of a large crowd. This would be legendary. Death by fire is incredibly beautiful. The death rating simply had to be high. Suddenly, someone threw a sword next to him and it pierced the fence behind him. Because of what happened, his hand fell to the ground and he screamed loudly in pain. The people around looked at this in surprise and said loudly that it seemed like the Shantian clan had come for revenge. They should look at this hero. The flames disappeared. He killed the evil immortal. This is a truly noble deed. The unholy fire could not burn him. The protagonist looked at the sword flying nearby and thought that the flames stopped this sword. It cut off his hand that touched the fire. Then the flames stopped by themselves. It seemed that whoever did this was trying to save him, not cripple him. However, it could have been done earlier. He was almost completely burned and would have been better off dead. He asked if someone could lend him his pants. The people immediately took off their pants with a happy look and said that he could have his pants. The hero's deed deserves special respect. Would he refuse to accept his family's inherited underwear? MC said that the Shantian clan wouldn't let this go so easily. They should flee from here before they were captured. One of them said that, however, the hero was so badly injured. Why didn't he go with them? He said that they didn't have to worry. He would handle everything. After all, immortals didn't scare him. After all the people left, he turned around and asked if he should show himself already. Who did he owe his life to? There were two people standing in the forest nearby and said that he had ordered them to save him, but he didn't seem very happy about it. It was true, he was as unpredictable as his brother. Who would have thought that he would fight an immortal, much less risk his own life? Xiaomu walked towards them and said that they should go out. After all, he had to repay his benefactor. Chushin said that he was not worthy of calling himself the son of heaven, since a mere person could administer justice, but he could not. However, he had always understood his situation and believed in his farsightedness. It was natural that he could not allow himself to act impulsively. The Lord asked, however, what was the point of meekly enduring? He He wanted to act freely, just like him, giving thanks for the good and punishing the evil. He had to take him away and make sure that the Xianqin did not follow him. He did not want such a brave man to suffer. They heard something, turned around, and Chuxin said that it was too late. Shijie had died at the hands of a mortal, even though she had used a bone-corroding talisman. At the same time, two people were playing a board game and said that she had always craved attention despite being deficient in talent. This fairy was to blame for what happened to her, but she still brought shame on the Shantian clan. Isn't Brother Qiang in charge of the temple this year? However, it seems like he's wandering around somewhere, so they'll have to figure it out themselves. He's right, after all. The temple is a place of pilgrimage. If they don't deal with that guy, the offerings might decrease. It seems like they won't have to fuss after all. That's right, since the bone-eating talisman was used, she's probably it. At that moment, the Xianqin elder Wu Qingxin flew to the protagonist and asked who he was. He looked at her and wondered, who was this woman? He said that he was a seeker of truth and justice. Can you find out who she is? She started using magic and said that it was boring. The immortal was right even when it wasn't. A powerful energy engulfed his body and he said loudly that this flame was 10 times more powerful than the moon fairies, so it was her he had heard of. Great, he would still die today. They'll see if the heavens like this sacrifice. Qingxin looked at him and thought, were martial artists so desperate that they would send a boy of only the 6th grade to the immortals? She didn't care much about the death of the moon fairy, but she was her subordinate, so she couldn't show an ounce of weakness. She felt someone's presence a second ago, but now there was no one there. It didn't matter, let them go. After all, she didn't have time to make a fuss. After a while, the cat lay on MC's legs and thought that he was a real treasure and could be reborn endlessly. His energy was so juicy. He looked at the system window with a calm expression and said that he should stop sucking death energy from him and help out at least sometimes. He couldn't do much in a fight, but he was very cute. The system notified that the mortality rate was A. He had become a real enemy of the immortals. The death score was 56 points. The current score was 54 points. The weekly resurrection rate was 3 out of 5. Xiaomu said with a smile that he had reached the 4th grade. It wouldn't be long before he could begin cultivating immortality. For now, he had the Fist of Immortality and the Endless Path of Immaculate Yan to do so, although they hadn't been fully explored yet. There was also Lin Shi's martial arts, but that technique was mainly used by martial artists, not immortals. He thought that, however, that woman from Shantian knew her, which meant she had some connection with the martial arts world and the association. Perhaps if he followed her, he would be able to find the continuation of the Fist of Immortality. Using his ability, he found her in the Xianqin clan elder's residence, the spiritual lake. Qingxin thought that there was a traitor in the association. At the same time, several people were praying in her mountain temple and said that they were lighting incense in honor of their merciful mistress. May her blessings be with them, ridding them of illness and protecting them from evil spirits. She watched this from the lake and thought that the energy was not enough. If she wanted to break through even higher, she needed much more grace. She looked to the side and thought that there was someone there. MC hid behind a rock, covered the girl's mouth with his hand, and said that he did not think that Elder Shanshan would live in such an unsightly place. Although seeing a group of slaves at the gate, he immediately suspected that she was not as merciful as they said. The girl, looking scared, called him a ghost, asked for mercy, and said that her father left her to join the clan. He should take out his anger on the one who burned him. After all, she did nothing to him. He said with a frightening smile that she must answer his questions honestly, or he would have to take her with him. He let her go and said that he would try to believe her, but she should not lie to him. She said that such a thing would not happen. Her father is an official of Heian Prefecture. If he spared her, he would hold a lavish funeral ritual for him. Xiaomu asked if she knew where her mistress came from. She said that she used to be a disciple of a martial artist nicknamed the Righteous Warrior. In fact, his name was Wu Qinxing. You could say that they were as close as father and daughter. He said that it seemed that the Righteous Warrior was distinguished by his particular hatred for immortals. How did his disciple become one of them? She said that he probably didn't know, but 40 years ago, he was defeated by an immortal. Since then, he joined a certain criminal group and went into hiding. Even the elders of their clan couldn't find him. He was the greatest martial artist, but even he wasn't strong enough to deal with an immortal. What could an ordinary warrior hope for in such a case? So about 10 years ago, their mistress joined Shantian. She practiced martial arts, but her exceptional talent for cultivation was beyond doubt. After 5 years, she surpassed her peers. Subsequently, the elders chose her as a worthy example of rebirth from a warrior to a cultivator. Since then, more and more people began to join their clan. Of course, her father forced her, but she did not mind being next to her at all. The protagonist thought that this was a pretty smart move. Now it makes sense why some warriors are willing to do anything for immortals. However, cultivation is a very difficult process that is not accessible to everyone. Therefore, the clan made them simple slaves. However, since Qingxin joined Xianqian 10 years ago, it is unlikely that she has anything to do with the destruction of the Qiao family. This means that she does not know anything about the Fist of Immortality. He asked how much she knew about martial arts. Maybe her mistress taught her something? The girl said with a confused look that she was not worthy of her time yet, she should work harder. She takes care of her pets, arranges her life, including food, water, and sleep. Someday she will definitely gain her favor. The MC said loudly with a dissatisfied look that this is more like a sect than a clan. Are they brainwashing them? They both did not notice the talisman that was flying towards them, and he asked how strong Qingxin was. The girl chuckled and said that their mistress was incredibly talented. A little more, and she will achieve true immortality. At the last moment, he managed to grab her hand and throw her aside at the moment of the explosion of this talisman. Qingxin looked at them with a serious expression and said that she should shut up. Xiaomu said with a serious expression that, if he hadn't reacted in time, this girl would have turned into ashes. Did this woman really think that humans were just insects? She recognized him, but he coughed and said that he was Qiao Zong. The one she had burned just now was his brother. Their honest and loyal family devoted themselves to caring for their homeland. However, she had killed his relative, and he had come to avenge it. She immediately detonated another talisman next to him, but he managed to jump aside. He looked at her and said that she could relax. After all, he was just joking. You could say that they both came from the same kindergarten, the world of martial arts. He thought that he needed to hold out as long as possible in order to extract more information from her. Qingxin called him a fool and said that he was probably sent by the righteous warrior, but his plan would fail because she would kill him. The protagonist said that he didn't even know who she was talking about. Why did she think that he was somehow related to that righteous warrior? Maybe he has something that is rightfully his? He seemed to understand, a combat technique with a cultivation effect. They both practiced something similar with her. She didn't attack him or say anything, and he said that it turned out that he was right. They were connected by the same techniques. Qingxin taught her the technique, but she betrayed him to appropriate the technique for herself, right? Qingxin used her energy to lift her sword into the air and said that his brother was saved by the Emperor's guard that day. Is he working for him too? Has the righteous warrior already managed to reach the imperial court? MC looked at her and wondered, was he saved by the Emperor's guard? However, they have nothing in common. A couple of days ago he even cursed him. She took out another talisman with a serious expression and said that he should confess where the Emperor was now. He asked if she would believe him if he said that she had never even seen his face. She pointed the talisman at him and said that she didn't need it then. Xiaomu started to run away and thought that she was crazy. It seemed that he wouldn't learn anything good from her, so it was time to finish. Unexpectedly for him, the girl he had recently saved hit him from behind, and she asked for forgiveness. Because of this talisman immediately caught up with him, which began to burn his body. She knelt down, asked the Lady Saint for forgiveness, and said loudly that she would immediately write to her father and ask him to build a few more temples in her honor. Qingxin looked at her with indifference and said that she should know her place. If she opened her mouth again, she would burn her entire family. After that, she came to the room where the talisman was floating and told Elder Sun that she had been attacked by someone related to the Emperor. He said that he understood her. She should not be distracted from her cultivation. She closed her eyes and thought that Xianqian had been looking for the Emperor for a long time, so this information would be very useful to the clan. Perhaps she could even get some potions that would help with cultivation. She must become stronger. One day, she too will achieve true immortality. At the same time, Zhang Lang said in front of the crowd of people that Xiao Pifu had been engulfed in hellfire, but the heavens had blessed him to come out alive. He then asked, would immortals be able to withstand the determination of a true man? MC was sitting at a table in this building and said that drinking tea while telling stories about how cool he was simply wonderful. He felt pain in his shoulder and thought that, however, being burned to ashes, especially twice, was not very pleasant. For the second death, he only received a C rank. This was unfair. He should at least receive some rewards from death. He thought that if he thought about it, even though she joined the Immortal clan, she was still afraid of her former teacher. It was possible that the righteous warrior himself sent her to Xianqian as a spy, but she was trying to escape from his control. Still, what does cultivation technique have to do with all this? He hadn't felt it before, but the city was actually full of martial artists. Sometime later, in the Xiantian clan located on the Nanji Ridge, Elder Sun said that Qingxin conveyed a message that Emperor Daiyan had appeared in Heian Prefecture. Elder Tianxing said that their plan would finally be put into action. Master Qiang said that according to the agreement, in half a month, the Emperor must disguise himself as a simple wanderer, climb Chinmen Peak and bow to the Xiantian immortals. However, there have been no rumors about him lately. Does he really want to retreat at the last moment? Sun said that in order to hide his movements from the eyes of the other immortal clans, their leader uses a great treasure, the heavenly mirror from Zhongzhou. This impudent man dared to send his man to save a mortal who invaded their temple. Tianxing was indignant at this and loudly asked if he thought that the lack of war with them was due to him. The 9 immortal clans have reigned in the heavens for centuries. 40 years ago, they destroyed the last elite warriors of the empire, and he thinks they are playing games here? Master Qinyan agreed with a calm expression and said that, however, the ancient text said that the emperor's blessing was bestowed by the highest heavens, although he can neither achieve immortality nor ascend. So, cultivators probably shouldn't interfere with his fate? Sun said that they weren't trying to take the throne away from him. However, they wanted to appropriate all the world's resources and greatly increase the flow of grace and offerings. Besides, what was the point of being called the Emperor of Mortals? It was the same as being called the King of the Stupid Monkeys. They should be controlling the Monkey King, not becoming him. Tianxing said that in any case, he would bow to them in half a month whether he wanted to or not. Then they would become the first immortal clan to be bowed to by the Emperor himself, and they would lead the 8 steel clans. Sun said that, however, they shouldn't get into any big conflicts either. Sometimes you need to throw a treat to their Monkey King. Right now, that treat would be Qingshan, since she had burned the Emperor's subordinate. He opened a small cup and said that they only used it as bait for Qinsheng. However, after so many years, he still hasn't shown up. What's the point of keeping it to himself? After a while, Chuxin told the master that he had investigated and found that Qiao Pifu had no connection with the Qiao family from Heian that had once been exterminated. In addition, he learned that not long ago, a father and sons with the surname Qiao had been proclaimed heroes in Yanshan. They possessed the technique of the great law of retribution of the demons of heaven. His master asked, isn't the technique that destroys the body a direct path to the extinction of the clan? He didn't know what to answer, but at that moment he felt something, looked up and said that something was approaching. Qiang landed next to them, stated his name and said that he welcomed the emperor. Yunhei went to him and asked what brought the immortal from the Xianqin clan here. He thought about it. He had hidden himself so carefully, how could he find him? He said that he came to hurry him up. After all, he should be at Qinmen Peak in just half a month. By the way, yesterday, some mortal had invaded Shantian Temple. It seemed that his subordinate was also involved. Chu Xin was surprised by this and thought that he had used a blade without any identifying marks. How was he able to tell? Wait, Qingshan was a martial artist before. She must have learned the winged fish throwing technique. Yunhei looked at him and thought about it. He had been careless. But who knew that they would be discovered so easily? Xiantian wanted to use this fact to blackmail him? How could he avoid being worshipped now? He said that he shouldn't think anything like that. He was about to say something, but Qiang said that the blame for yesterday's incident lies entirely with Saint Qingshan and her subordinate Shi Jie. They have nothing to hide. They are honest and fair. So they decided to strip her of her title and banish her from Heian. Yunhei was surprised by this and wondered, is there even one immortal clan that cares about fairness? What do they want to achieve by this? Qiang began to take off and said that since this matter was settled, it was time for His Majesty to move out. They would meet in half a month at Qinmen Peak. At the same time, Zhang Lang ran very quickly through the city, but at some point he decided to stop. He grabbed his weapon and said that if he did not show himself immediately, he would kill him. Xiao Mu came out to him and said that he should calm down because he had no bad intentions. His name was Qiao Zong. He had heard that he was the best informant in this city. He would like to learn something from him. Zhang Lang immediately ran up to him and asked with a happy look, so he was also from the Qiao family? He looked exactly like those heroes. He gave his name and said that he was in Yancheng when his relatives performed their great feats. He owed his life to them. The protagonist was surprised by his reaction and thought that he wouldn't have recognized him if he hadn't reminded him. He said with a happy look that since then he has been spreading the fame of the Qiao family throughout the world. He inspires people to resist the tyrant immortals. It's okay, since it's quite difficult to catch him. He must have noticed that he is not an easy storyteller. MC agreed and said that it was not only the sword in his hands that said so, but also the refinement of his techniques. He was clearly an unusual person. He agreed and said that he was actually a follower of the Tingchao Tower. They looked at each other silently for a few seconds, and he asked which tower he was talking about. Zhang Lang said that I understand. I don't think he's ever heard of it. They are a martial clan that survived the massacre of the immortals. Their leader is none other than the great sage, who has collected knowledge from all corners of the martial arts world. The weapon ranking, the list of great heroes, these are all his brainchildren. He looked at him with indifference and asked, So they are something like scouts? Jiang Lang agreed and said with a sad expression that although their clan has recently sunk to rankings like the top beauties of the empire, the worst scandals of the year, and brothel guides, this is ruining their reputation, which is why he has not heard of them. To his surprise, Xiao Mu took out a notebook with a writing brush with a serious expression and said that he wanted to know more about these rankings. Jiang Lang smiled with a confused look and said that he was actually in the business of spreading stories about great heroes, so he did not know the details of these rankings. However, he had more interesting information. Recently, the Wuji Association announced that they were recruiting warriors who would be willing to kill on their orders. For successfully completing tasks, the warriors are promised techniques from the righteous warrior himself. Their first target was the traitor who joined the Xiantian clan, the Saintess, and Qin. The protagonist ran away very quickly, thanked him loudly, and said that he would treat him to tea someday. He thought that now it was clear where so many martial artists came from. If he won this hunt, maybe he would be able to get the rest of the Immortal Fist or even join the association. He had to kill her. After a while, he entered the restaurant and thought that it was strange that only a few people had come. Do they still hope to deal with Qingxin? They are just cannon fodder. A man with a friendly smile approached him and asked, "It seems like he is not from the Wuji Society, right? It seems like they both came here for the divine tempering technique." MC looked at him and asked how he should address him. Did he want something from him? The man said with a smile that he could just call him Old Hu. Since the respected envoy had not yet arrived, he decided to talk to someone. He sat down at the table with him and said that it seemed like he was already a 4th-rank warrior at such a young age. After all, he must have a high-level internal technique. He practices an advanced technique obtained from the Wuji Society. Although he only got half of the scroll, it is really good. In addition, he has another unique secret technique. They can exchange knowledge. What does he say to that? Xiao Mu agreed with a smile and said that, however, since he only has half of the scroll, it turns out that he cannot do without the Wuji Society. He thought that it seemed like their society has all the second parts of the scrolls. If he wants to advance, he will have to serve them. Old Hu said that, however, even half a scroll is already a lot. Previously, advanced techniques were in the hands of large sects, and those with inferior talent could not get to it. Now, you can complete a quest to gain access. Half of the technique is enough to practice for a lifetime. The protagonist said, "By the way, they have been sitting here for half an hour. Where is that same Xingxuan envoy? When will they start hunting Qingxin? Are they really scared?" The warrior who was sitting next to him called him impudent and asked how he dared to talk about the envoy like that. He definitely had everything planned out to deal with her. Who is he to doubt him? Another warrior with a serious expression said that she is not only a holy maiden, but also a disciple of the most holy warrior of martial arts. She knows the technique of the blazing fire seal. Yesterday, she burned to death a high-ranking master. He heard that he was from the Qiao family. Is this the kind of family that can even scold the emperor, and nothing will happen to them for it? The man hiding his face said that if they are scared, they can leave. After all, a holy warrior will only pass on his techniques to someone who proves himself the best. The fewer competitors, the higher the chance of getting a reward. Immediately after that, the 4 warriors who were in that establishment attacked each other. The warrior who attacked MC hit him with his fist and thought, "Is this the iron shirt technique?" He strained his arms really hard and said loudly, then he should evaluate his iron fist technique. Now they will find out whose style is stronger. He blocked his attacks with a calm expression and thought, his punches are continuous, this fist fighter is really strong. However, defeating him will not be a problem. However, that guy on the side is quite strong. Apparently, the others also realize this, so no one attacks him. He grabbed his spear and thought, what does it mean to start with recklessness? He ran very quickly past the man who attacked him and threw away the cloth that his spear was wrapped in. He struck with his weapon, but the guy blocked the attack with his sword, which broke because of this. There was a small cut on the protagonist's face, and he said with a smile that he could have killed him with one blow. But he deliberately held back. So he was deliberately provoking them to fight so that they would level up. He called him the Xingxuan envoy and asked, was he right? After hearing this, all the other warriors in the establishment stopped fighting and looked at them. The guy asked how he knew that. The MC said that there was more than one person here who practiced the Holy Warrior's spiritual connection method, and if he got lost among them, it would be difficult to recognize him. However, if you look closely, it becomes clear that he was emitting a much more powerful aura. And most importantly, he was carrying the Xingxuan envoy token from the Wuji Society. He looked down and thought, so that spear attack was to pull off his outerwear? He didn't even notice it. He praised him for it and asked what his name was. He called himself Chao Zhang and thought that for now he should use this cover. Old Hu was very surprised when he heard this and asked loudly, so the hero from the Qiao family who has been talked about so much lately, Is he his relative? The protagonist agreed and said that the one who was burned alive was his own brother. The envoy said that it was clear now. He was here to avenge his brother. This was not an easy task. Those who were not strong enough had no place here. He apologized to them for the harsh inspection. Fortunately, everyone was here. They were 4th-rank warriors. They were able to kill the traitor and receive a generous reward. He had prepared the horses at the inn, so it was better not to waste time and head out now. As they rode off, MC asked, "By the way, where's Qingxin now?" It seemed that she was not in the city, since he did not sense her presence. The envoy said that he did not need to worry. Xu Cheng, Soul Claw, and several other 4th-rank warriors had gone ahead and had already found her location. Old Hu said that he knew her. This is a master with a name who has long been famous. He specializes in hard techniques, fighting by putting everything on the line. He is one of the strongest among the 4th rank. The envoy said that there is a saying, the limit of internal strength. This is the 4th rank. But Xu Cheng has mastered the method of spiritual connection of the Holy Warrior. The Holy Warrior said that this secret method is a real stumbling block for a warrior who wants to enter the path of tempering the spirit. Jiao Mu said that this means that he is truly strong. After a while, they saw a burning man impaled on a stake, and the envoy said that it was Xu Cheng. Old Hu was very surprised by this and said that he was pierced with a wooden stake and burned alive. This witch is really cruel. The protagonist said that Qingxin deliberately dragged out the burning process so that they all could see him dying in agony, and did this to intimidate. He looked at him and asked why he was so good at this. He was confused by this question and said that his family had a lot of experience in this matter. He thought that he had already been burned twice. Whether he wanted it or not, the experience still appeared. The messenger said loudly that there was a new trace. In the depths of these mountains, there is a village and it is located there. Sometime later, in the Holy Maiden's village, the saint statue said that the Great Path has 50 parts, but heaven only leaves 49. One escapes to save people. Although Wu Qingxin was expelled from the sect for misconduct and stripped of her saint title, every trial is just a test. If she can return to the Xuantian sect's main temple on Mount Qingming, she can still become their disciple again. Qingxin quickly threw the token aside. She thought that the saint statue knew very well that as soon as she left the Xuantian monastery, the Holy Maiden would immediately be hunted by the Martial Boundary Alliance. Besides, they took her artifact. And yet they expect Qingxin to reach Mount Qingming? The saint doubted that they were even going to give her a chance to return alive. Leo suddenly turned to the lady saint. He happily raised his hand and asked, "Is she the same saint?" His mother said that Qingxin saved them all. The saint is real, very kind, heavenly immortal. Qingxin thought about it. It seems that the head of the county sent all the refugees here to pray to her and strengthen her spiritual power? Suddenly Aunt Lin put her hands on Leo's shoulders and exclaimed, "What is he doing here? Lady Saint has appeared. She must forgive him for his disrespect." Leo looked at her happily and asked her to look at the fact that the saint came out of the painting. Auntie went outside and asked Leo to run quickly to his mother and not to walk late at night. Leo raised his hand and said goodbye to Aunt. Qingxin clarified, "Did Lin bring this child to the village?" Aunt replied at once, "Yes. They are all refugees who suffered from disasters. She saw how hungry they were and sheltered them." Later, the city government began to send silver and people little by little, and the village gradually found peace. Lin worriedly turned her head to the side and noticed that so many years had passed and asked if everything was okay with the saint. Qingxin calmly thanked her mother for her concern. Lin raised her hands in fear and said that the saint was joking. An ordinary woman cannot have the honor of being the mother of a heavenly immortal. She really did have a son and daughter, but many years ago. The saint clarified, "Did they die?" Suddenly, the aunt became very scared. Qingxin said that that year, the holy warrior exterminated sects to take possession of the battle scrolls. He also came to her family, the Lin family. In order to protect her family, her mother gave her, who had talents in martial arts, in exchange for their safety. But this did not save the Lin family. The holy warrior only pretended to adopt her. In fact, he just wanted to use her strength as a resource for his cultivation. Auntie put her hands on her chest in great surprise and said that this couldn't be. He had promised her after all. Qingxin continued that he had broken all laws for the sake of power. The holy warrior didn't care about earthly laws or human life. She joined the immortal sect to escape from his control, and now even her sect had turned its back on her. But Qingxin doesn't blame her mother and never has. 10 years ago, Mom founded the saint's village to help her on her path of cultivation. The saint tried her best, tried everything, but still couldn't break through to the next level. Now that the Martial Boundary Union is chasing her and the saint herself is barely alive, she only came to say goodbye one last time. Qingxin looked at the night sky and clarified, "Is she a saint? No, she's just a wild grass, devoid of kinship luck." As she left, the saint asked her mother to take care of herself in the future life. Suddenly, the ant called out to the saint with a smile and asked to allow a simple woman to ask the saint for a blessing. After a while, the warriors are standing under the night sky. The warrior sternly noted that this cursed village is sinister through and through. Should they just break in? The star messenger asked him not to rush and first discuss the plan. The protagonist asked them to stop and said that someone was coming. The comrade clarified, was it the reinforcements that Qingxin called? MC did not confirm this and replied that they were just villagers and asked him not to panic. Leo happily ran and asked, did the uncles also come to look for the saint? Old Hu squatted and extended his hand to the child and agreed with him. He clarified, would Leo not show them the way? Leo smiled ominously and, enveloping himself in flames, refused him. He noted that they were bad people. Old Hu looked at the child's hand reaching out to him in confusion. The protagonist quickly grabbed his comrade and ordered him to get out of the way. MC looked at the flames heading towards him with great fear. Suddenly, Old Hu gripped the hilt of his weapon and shouted for the protagonist to not move. He quickly struck Lihio with his sword. Zhang happily exclaimed to his comrade that this was not bad. Even the remains of Lihio disappeared with his strike. Why would Old Hu teach the protagonist like this? Old Hu smiled happily and laughingly replied that he only removed the top layer of skin. He confidently looked away and added that now was no time for jokes. That witch probably sensed their approach and set up an ambush in advance. MC noted that she was also using children. This shamelessness is very strong. The villagers are completely brainwashed. Their minds can no longer be restored. The villagers, smiling terrifyingly, said that guarding the saint is an honor. Dying for her is a joy. Aunt Lin picked up the talisman and enveloped herself in flames, saying that this was a sacred flame. She asked it to burn her mortal body. The bodies of the villagers were enveloped in flames and they quickly ran, shouting that there were no regrets in dying for her. The star messenger exclaimed that this was a fire that ate away at bones. He ordered them to retreat and under no circumstances let it touch their skin. This witch really did it. Old Hu quickly ran through the villagers, attacking them with his sword. The protagonist, looking at this, noted that this was amazing. Even this blazing fire was cut by his comrade. How did Old Hu do this at all? Lan replied that this was a cutting method, like that of a chef. Old Hu is a descendant of the great master of the Tao of the Sword. In the times before and after the War of the Immortals, on the legendary hero ranking compiled by Bai Shaosheng, the holy warrior stood in 11th place, and the 10th place was then occupied by none other than a swordsman with the surname Hu. MC asked, smiling, is that so? Does that mean he was even higher than that same holy warrior? We'll have to take a closer look at Old Hu, maybe even learn from him. Old Hu waved his sword and said that he would contain the flame. The witch is probably somewhere nearby. Further on, the comrades find her. Aunt Lin asked for the sacred flame to burn her mortal body. She stretched out her hand forward with tears in her eyes and said that guarding the saint is an honor, dying for her is a joy. Her gaze clouded over, and she saw Qingxin and Old Hu. Aunt cried with joy and closed her eyes. Suddenly, Qingxin appeared from her mother's body. The saint sadly lowered her head down and asked, did Mom die? She joyfully smiled, raised her head and screamed, where did so much strength come from? Where did so much desire come from? Why didn't Mom die earlier? Such a powerful will, with its help, the saint will definitely be able to complete the foundation formation stage. Suddenly, Qingxin noticed the dark clouds of smoke. The star messenger, confidently holding the sword, clarified that Old Hu was right. She was really here. The warrior smiled decisively and exclaimed that the witch's hour had come. The warrior exclaimed that victory was his. Qingxin raised her hand, pointing a sword of mana at him and ordered the enemy to die. The sword quickly passed through the warrior's neck. The star messenger jumped towards her and yelled that the witch was strong and they needed to attack from 3 sides. Qingxin put her finger to her nose and created copies and headed towards the opponents. The protagonist was very surprised and thought, are these clones? Did he end up in the Leaf Village? The clone extended a sword towards him with great speed, but MC managed to dodge the attack. He quickly thrust the weapon into her head and flames enveloped the clone. Zhong saw this and thought that things were bad. These were not just illusions. Her avatars were made of paper talismans, soaked in the flames of fleshlessness. Suddenly, fire enveloped the bodies of her comrades, and they screamed in pain. Qingxin noted that those it touched would burn forever, like in hell. The saint flew into the sky and said that the world was full of suffering. The Dayan Empire was rotten, the taxes in the county were strangling the people. Only in the village of the Holy Maiden could the dispossessed find salvation. This was a real utopia. The villagers joyfully extended their hands towards her and asked to look at the fact that the Holy Maiden had appeared to them. The woman thanked the saint for taking her son and giving him a place in heaven. The villagers raised their talismans, engulfing themselves in fire, and exclaimed that this was the fire of the gods. They asked him to burn away all the sins of the mortal world. They asked to burn their flesh so that the Holy Maiden would lead them to the blissful world. People asked to burn them and take them away so that they could quickly reach bliss. Qingxin agreed and clarified that a little more, and she would break through to the foundation formation stage. The damned insects decided to kill her? Yes, they are afraid to even approach, let alone hit. Suddenly, the saint looked away in fear. The protagonist enveloped himself in streams of mana and, flying rapidly towards her, exclaimed for the witch to die. He used the retribution of the heavenly demon. After a while, the resident opened his mouth in horror, standing in the flames. Old Hu, holding a sword in his hands, looked at the residents and screamed, "How many more are there?" Suddenly, a powerful stream of mana hit the building. MC fights Qingxin, standing in the smoke. Old Hu turned his head to the side with a smile and noticed that even engulfed in flames, Zhang is fighting her. He is a real warrior. The saint screamed with rage. Is it him again? The protagonist should have burned to the ground. Why is he still alive? MC confidently raised his hand and replied that he can die, but she has no right to live. Zhang, smiling, quickly struck her with many blows with his fists. Qingxin, frightened, blocking the attacks, exclaimed that this is stupid rage and fighting. Does he really think his body is capable of resisting spells? When the protagonist turns to ashes, victory will still be hers. Suddenly, the MC appeared next to her face with a terrifying look and replied that the saint will not wait for this. The comrades quickly ran towards the enemy with the intention of attacking and shouted that they are coming. The likes of Zhang are the pride of all warriors. They will kill the witch. They will go together to the last battle. The warriors struck her at the same time and ordered the witch to accept death. Suddenly, a bright light spread around. The warriors with severe wounds, surrounded by flames, stand on the ground. Old Hu looked at the scene in the dark smoke. Qingxin calmly noted that it seems that she is still not destined to step on the path of immortality. The protagonist holds a sword stuck in her stomach. The saint added that if they think that by killing her, they will save her. The MC sternly interrupted her and said that the flame of deprivation of flesh is unquenchable and eternal. Everyone in this village knows this. They are killing her not for the sake of salvation, but for the saint to do. Qingxin, holding the talisman behind her back, began to recover and laughed and asked, "Isn't she right? They fools, who mastered the holy warrior's spiritual kinship, have long been doomed." She asked them to think about it, and asked why there is a resonance between those who practice this technique. Why can anyone learn it? Qingxin, with a terrifying smile, answered that it was because this secret technique was created by the holy warrior himself, to make it easier to track and kill strong fighters. The protagonist was stunned when he heard this. Qingxin said that 40 years had passed since the War of the Immortals. The holy warrior went around all 9 provinces, collecting martial arts geniuses. He selected 3,000 talented young men and women. Some became his disciples, some his adopted son or daughter. He passed on to them the best martial techniques, the most sublime cultivation methods, among them, and that very spiritual kinship of the holy warrior. But those who practice this technique are doomed. In the end, they become not disciples but food. He killed them himself and took all their power. The saint lowered her head and asked to guess how many of those 3,000 disciples were still alive. Even if they hid at the edge of the world, the holy warrior would find them, intuitively and inevitably, and kill every last one of them. In this world, neither on the streets nor in the palaces, nor in the sect, nor in the state, they no longer have a chance to survive. Suddenly, Qingxin interrupted herself, coughing up blood. MC looked at her and said that he was listening and asked her to continue speaking. The saint screamed angrily, "Does he not understand? They are just steps on his way to the top. Today they killed her, and tomorrow they will kill Zhang as well." Qingxin asked to let her go and exclaimed that she knew a way to save them. She had a chance to dispel this curse on them. The protagonist looked at her with anger and instantly swung his weapon, striking her. The saint looked at him in amazement, and MC said that if you die, then die. He grinned maliciously and added that anyone who kills him will only make him stronger. Qingxin died with her mouth wide open. The villagers looked at the warriors in fear and asked, "Did the holy maiden die?" "No, that can't be. It's impossible." They happily ran to the side and laughed and shouted that she ascended to immortality. From today on, they are not just a village of the holy maiden. They are a village of the immortal maiden. Zhang sternly said that they say that the flame of deprivation of the flesh is unquenchable. But, apparently, the flame of people's hearts is much more terrible. The protagonist looked at his friends and asked, "How are they?" Lan replied that they barely endured. It's good that they killed Qingxin. The flame became weaker. The Star Messenger noted that Old Hu was seriously injured and could no longer help them. The protagonist asked them to try to channel their internal energy into defense. They needed to hold out for at least a little while, and then they would think of something to put out this fire. The comrades obeyed him. After some time, the friends were sitting in a circle engulfed in flames. MC looked at his comrade with a smile and thought that they should hold out, but he seemed to be dying soon. Zhang was waiting for a reward for the quest. This time he killed the holy maiden. The evaluation should be high. Old Hu turned to MC and noted that the protagonist was a hero today. The victory over Qingxin was his merit. Few are able to earn his respect, but Zhang did. Especially because in the end, the protagonist did not succumb to its influence. Accepting death with a smile is truly great. The protagonist laughed joyfully and said that Old Hu was exaggerating. If it weren't for their comrade, they wouldn't have even reached the village. Zhang raised a finger and asked, didn't their comrade promise to teach him his sword technique? He remembered that, right? Old Hu laughed and agreed, exclaiming that they would return to the city and he would teach them right away. Suddenly, a sword pierced Old Hu's chest. The comrades looked at him in fear. Suddenly, several talismans shrouded in flames flew to the side. The comrades covered their faces with their hands and screamed, exclaiming that this was fire that was eating away at bones. Is Qingxin really not dead? The saint raised her hand and asked, damned warriors, and they dared to dream of her death? She merely used the simplest of the immortal techniques to hide the signs of life. Not a single one, not even the greatest martial artist, would be able to notice it. Even if she was mortally wounded, she could completely recover with the help of talismans. This is what an immortal technique is. Martial arts will never surpass her. Qingxin, with a terrifying look, raised many talismans around and said that they, warriors, are only fit to bow at the feet of immortals. Even the holy warrior is no exception. Suddenly, Qingxin felt the presence of someone. Old Hu said that he sent her to the Xuantian sect for more than 20 years, gave her so much time to shine on the stage. The protagonist turned his head to the side in fear and looked at the holy warrior. Old Hu added that he hoped that the saint would show at least something worthwhile. And in the end, he stood in front of her with a terrifying look, shrouded in flames. Qingxin saw him and screamed that this could not be, simply could not. Old Hu spread lightning around, blowing dust around, and clarified he changed his body and she no longer recognized? Let it be so. MC gritted his teeth and raised his hand to cover his face from the flying talismans. He thought with great surprise that the flames were destroyed in an instant. Lan furiously noted that his aura was hundreds of times stronger than Qingxin's. The star messenger said that there was no mistake. He was a holy warrior. The saint shook with fear and asked why he was here. Old Hu, with a terrifying spirit above his head, clarified. Why was he able to break the iron rule of the two-way sensitivity of the holy warrior's spiritual affinity technique? Why couldn't she sense his approach? Why was Old Hu able to hide the trace even from her? Qingxin stood in a stupor looking at him, and Old Hu, with a stern look, said that she was not worthy of asking questions. The saint quickly bowed to him and asked for forgiveness from her adoptive father. Qingxin said that she was simply too amazed by his strength. The saint thought that she was such a fool. What he couldn't do 20 years ago doesn't mean he can't do it now, because he's become even stronger. Old Hu ominously spread lightning around and said that he named her Qingxin, pure heart, because he wanted her spirit to be brighter. And she hadn't succeeded in either the spirit of martial arts or the foundation of the Taoist path. What was she afraid that even after a breakthrough, she would still die at his hand and her spirit would finally break? Old Hu raised his hand and said that since she wanted to live so much, he would give her a chance. Qingxin happily raised her head and thanked her adoptive father. Old Hu ordered her to defeat him and prove that she was worthy of living. Qingxin was very surprised to hear this and thought that for so many years she had done everything just to hide from him. She lived in fear, just to survive, and now this day has finally come. Old Hu seriously asked her to begin and noted that disobedient and useless children are killed. The saint knelt down and thought he was serious. If she couldn't defeat him, she would definitely die. Qingxin stood up and looked at her adoptive father. The protagonist looked at her sternly and wondered, Qingxin was going to fight to the death? He would just see what a true holy warrior was capable of. Qingxin rushed into battle with a serious expression. MC gritted his teeth in fear and wondered, was she rushing straight ahead? Wanting to fight him in martial arts? Old Hu stands quietly in place, waiting for the fight. Suddenly, Qingxin flew up without attacking her adoptive father. Zhang was very surprised and thought, did she escape? The saint flew away with great fear and thought that this was impossible. She will lose and die. Qingxin will return to the immortal sect. She will do anything and beg for mercy. Let them humiliate her. As long as she survives, anything will do. Suddenly, Old Hu appeared in front of her with a terrifying look. He grabbed her head with force with his hand and sent lightning bolts at her. The protagonist turned his head to the side in amazement and noted that it was very fast. Even warriors rarely see this. Old Hu lifted the saint up by her head and clarified that he once had hopes for her. After all, she seemed capable. And now, even her escape speed is mediocre. Leaving Qingxin alive then was a mistake, but mistakes can be corrected. Qingxin scaredly asked her adoptive father not to do this and give her another chance because she wants to live. Why does she have to die? The saint only wants to live. The immortal sect threw her away like trash. Old Hu used her as fuel. Does he even know what it means to live in fear all his life? The day will come when her foster father will experience this. He will also die a terrible death. Old Hu squeezes her head, sending streams of green mana into it. Suddenly, he threw her to the ground, and Lan looked at her in surprise. All that was left of her head was a skull. Lan said with great fear that he was afraid that the same fate awaited them as Qingshan. The Star Envoy clarified, was the comrade afraid? He noted that all the martial artists in the world dream of defeating the immortals. And the whole world knows that only a holy warrior can do this. The goal of the Wuji society is to use absolute power to exterminate all immortals and bring eternal peace. MC smiled and added that the first thing the holy warrior did after his defeat was to destroy all the martial arts clans of that time. The strong raise their blade against the stronger, and the weak against the even weaker. Zhong clarified, Old Hu can't kill immortals, he kills his own? And he calls himself the one who will bring eternal peace? Old Hu sternly asked, is the protagonist teaching him what to do? MC sternly raised his hand and clarified that a true righteous man will not save his life at the cost of righteousness. He is ready to die to remain true to himself. Since the war with the immortals began, hundreds of martial clans have perished. His 3,000 disciples, 10,000 brothers in arms died. Zhang raised 2 fingers with great anger and asked, if it is possible to sacrifice everyone, then why is the holy warrior himself still alive? Old Hu smiled ominously and laughed, said that this is really interesting. The protagonist is much more interesting than Qingshan. He ordered MC to go up and receive death with a terrifying mana in his eyes. Zhang sternly disagreed and told Old Hu to come down and let him receive death. Old Hu sat on the roof and ordered MC to come up and choose a suitable weapon for himself. He calmly crossed his arms and noted what was waiting for him. Zhang headed towards the weapon stuck in the ground. He stepped on the weapon with his foot and it quickly flew up, turning over in the air. The protagonist instantly grabbed the weapon and swung it. He smiled decisively and raised the spear. MC headed towards the enemy with great speed, leaving a trail of smoke behind him. He quickly ran along the roof and stopped, raising his weapon. Old Hu touched the tip of the spear with his finger, creating a flash. Zhang was very surprised and thought, the enemy didn't even use chi, only repelled the attack with his body? The protagonist grinned sinisterly, and using the heavenly demon's retribution, thought that if so, there was nothing left to do but take a risk and fight to the death. MC quickly tried to attack Old Hu, but the enemy stopped the weapon with his finger. Old Hu, blocking the attacks with great speed, noted that this was an army spear technique. It was created specifically against fighters with moth muscles. If you add to this the disintegration of the heavenly demon, this is truly a forceful response to force. Zhang swings his weapon at great speed, trying to strike. Suddenly, the tip of the spear approached Old Hu's back. It touched his back, and a flash appeared. Old Hu clarified that this was a connecting combo. At such an age and has already learned so many techniques? But the technique of disintegration of the heavenly demon is a one-way street. Injure the enemy, and you almost have to bury yourself. Besides the fact that it crosses out MC's path in martial arts, there is no more use from it. Old Hu sharply raised his hands to the sides and broke the spear into many pieces. Zhang slid backwards due to the powerful flow of smoke and wind. He confidently smiled and punched his fist and used the fist of eternal life and thought that this was amazing. This is truly a martial arts genius. An ideal target for scoring points. The protagonist called out to the old freak and asked him not to rejoice ahead of time, because MC has more than just the decay of the heavenly demon. Suddenly, Old Hu appeared in front of Zhang, emitting lightning, and said that the entire Zhang family could not handle his fist of eternal life. Does the protagonist really think that he can handle it alone? Old Hu punched MC with great force, driving him into the ground. At the same time, the comrades looked at the huge stream of smoke rising up from the broken roof. Lan raised his hand in fear, and the Star Messenger sighed and said that he was sorry. After a while, light spread into the room through the broken roof. Clouds of smoke were flying in the hole in the floor. Old Hu said that Zhang wanted to know why it was always others who died, but not him, the holy warrior. Old Hu confidently looked at the protagonist lying on the floor and replied that it was because they were weak. People only knew his name, the Holy Sun, but no one knew that he was not born one. Throughout the first half of his life, he soared both on the martial path and in his career, until one day he lost the battle with the immortals. The Holy Sun gave up everything, his post, his title, and went into seclusion, dedicated himself to the martial path, created the Holy Warrior Revelation technique, found the 10 strongest fighters in the world and taught them the full version of this technique. They agreed to meet in 10 years and fight. The winner received the martial arts of the others, and became a martial arts saint. In those years, any of the 10 could become a holy warrior, but only Old Hu survived. The strong devours the weak. This is the highest law of the world, and the essence of his path. Old Hu looked sternly at MC lying in the hole and clarified that Zhang is weak. Ribs are crushed, plus the reverse damage from the disintegration of the heavenly demon. The protagonist is a corpse. Old Hu turned around and headed for the exit, added that MC is too weak, there is no point in even absorbing him. Suddenly, Zhang moved his hand and quickly directed his fist towards the holy warrior. Old Hu instantly stopped his fist with his hand and noted that these were the last convulsions. Suddenly he saw the hanging hand of the protagonist and shouted, "Is this a severed hand?" Instantly MC struck his fist on the cheek of the holy warrior. Zhang exclaimed that this is a wave fist, blow after blow, 60% of the power. Old Hu quickly turned his head to the side and thought, this boy, in order to find a chance to counterattack, cut off his own hand? The protagonist furiously filled his fist with mana and exclaimed that this is a double wave roll, 70% of the power. Old Hu thought that even in a losing position, with a clouded mind, his body still continues to fight to the death. Such a character is truly rare. MC continues to strike, increasing the percentage of the roll. Lan watched this with admiration and called out to Brother Zhang. The Star Messenger yelled, "Is it possible that the Holy Warrior is being defeated?" Lan said that it is said that the secret technique of the Chao family is the wave roll. It allows you to release only 6 to 7 points of power in one blow, and then, in a split second, deliver a second hidden blow. 2 layers of power accumulate, like waves, one on top of another, and ultimately give birth to a destructive force exceeding 100%. Lan joyfully exclaimed for the protagonist to defeat the Holy Warrior. Old Hu exhaled heavily as he received many strong blows to the chest. Suddenly, his eyes filled with a terrifying aura and laughed, yelling that MC is even more interesting than he thought. Old Hu quickly grabbed Zhang by the head. Lang yelled anxiously, "Is this the same technique that the Holy Warrior stole by eating Qingshan?" He asked the protagonist to be careful. MC looked at the opponent with a smile and asked, "Who is the Holy Warrior going to eat? Is it really him? Is he serious?" "He is Zhang, the weakest of the Qiao clan. But behind him are the senior masters, the hermit ancestors, and their entire clan, living for the sake of honor. The protagonist and the Holy Warrior are the best couple." MC confidently smiled and asked the saint to tell him, if Old Hu eats all the people from his clan, down to bone and skin, will he be able to kill the Immortal? Lang was very surprised to hear this and asked, "What is his comrade doing? Is he betraying his family?" "No, he has another plan. Maybe the protagonist is challenging the Holy Warrior to a fight." Old Hu squeezed MC's head harder and said that, since Zhang is so eager to die, so be it, he will help him. Suddenly, the protagonist's head tilted to the side, and he coughed up blood. Old Hu threw him to the ground and his comrades called out to MC. The Holy Warrior ominously turned his head to the side and told the other warriors to continue to fear and hate him. He raised his hand with a terrifying look and asked the warriors to become stronger, and one day they will stand before him again. Killing the Holy Warrior is their only hope. Lan put his hand on his chest with great fear and thought, the Holy Warrior will not kill them? No, not like that. Not yet the time. When all of them, the fruits are ripe, the Holy Warrior himself will come to collect them. Lan angrily raised his finger and yelled that he will not allow him. He will tell the whole world what the Holy Warrior did today. The Star Messenger stopped his comrade by putting his hand on his shoulder. Old Hu put his hand on the protagonist's face, spreading streams of mana around and asked him to tell. He said that he is waiting for everyone who dares to challenge him. After some time under the night sky, Zhang, sternly sitting on the roof, asked why the Holy Warrior didn't kill him. Does he really want him to become bait for the Qiao family? MC wondered why the opponent didn't kill him. His body is already very bad. He's suffering from pain here. Let Old Hu not make his efforts go to waste. Zhang angrily showed him the middle finger and called out to the old freak. The protagonist barked, "Is it really that hard for the Holy Warrior to kill him?" Suddenly, MC realized and yelled that Old Hu was afraid that the family would take revenge. Zhang laughed and noted that the opponent was a Holy Warrior, and he was scared. Old Hu, drinking water from a plate, said that whether the protagonist wants to die or not is his business. But whether to let him die or not is already the Holy Warrior's. He calmly raised his fist over the plate. MC tiredly lay down on the roof and clarified that he understood everything. Old Hu wants him to live in this world as a cripple, worse than dead. Now the Holy Warrior is not an honest freak. Zhang ordered him to leave or finish him off right away, like a man. Old Hu clarified, the protagonist wants the spirit tempering technique, right? He asked MC to do one thing for him, and he will give him the best one. Zhang smiled, taking a plate of water in his hand, and clarified, they had just almost killed each other, and now Old Hu wants him to work for him? The Holy Warrior asked him not to rush to refuse and pointed at something with his finger, asked to look. There, on the horizon, is the Qingming mountain range, one of the attractions of the southern district. He explained that at the top there is a Taoist temple, headquarters. This is the residence of the Xuantian sect. Old Hu asked to look at how the lanterns of the pilgrims curl like a snake on the rise, an endless stream. Looking at this, he added that ordinary people, albeit ignorant. But even Emperor Dayan is now breaking in to bow? The protagonist clarified, this emperor decided to bow to immortals? Has he gone completely crazy? Old Hu calmly said that, so what, these are just special cultivators. But MC understands what his bow means, right? The emperor sets an example. The people will start to blindly copy, the whole country will fall into religious frenzy and worship, and will never straighten up again. Zhang was surprised and thought that Butcher Zhen's letter briefly mentioned murder, so that's what it was. The holy warrior turned his head to the side and clarified, since the protagonist was going to die anyway, why not do something great before he dies? Old Hu asked him to kill the current Emperor Yan and challenge the Xuantian sect. MC turned his attention to the saint and turned his head to the side. Old Hu put his hand on his shoulder and added that if possible, he would personally give Zhang the supreme technique. When the protagonist reaches perfection, he must come again and fight him. And if MC dies, nothing. Let his family come for revenge. No matter how many of them there are, he will accept them all. And the holy warrior will give them this knowledge. The protagonist smiled confidently and clenched his hand into a fist, asking, kill the emperor, and then use his own technique to kill the holy warrior? Sounds like a good plan. MC thought, what does that mean? His assassination plan worked. And kill, and for good. Why refuse? Old Hu laughed and exclaimed that he was not mistaken about Zhang. He has courage. The protagonist asked how the holy warrior became that same Old Hu. Did he even exist? Or was the holy warrior? The holy warrior replied that it was the same one, the 10th on the list of the strongest in the world. He defeated him and took his place. MC noted that this is why the holy warrior hid for so many years. At the same time, one of the 7 great masters of the martial arts path, Wu Zheng, was running through the forest. He quickly jumped onto the roof, and Old Hu noticed that his comrade had finally arrived. It seemed that his comrade had taken everyone who had been following him away. Although the path here was not easy, was it? Shi Zheng pointed out that if he were to die one day, it would definitely not be for the sake of the holy warrior. The holy warrior laughed and asked if he really felt pain when he looked at his own kind. He could try to kill him. Although, that was not what he came for. How many were there? He reported using his ability that there were 4 in the foundation stage. The Xuantian sect had clearly planted Qinxing as bait to lure him out. He noted that they were using up everything they had left, trying to make one last move before the emperor came crawling to bow. The protagonist thought, looking at Shi Zheng in surprise, did this guy just fight an immortal? Did he manage to distract him? How did he do it, and with such injuries? He could heal himself in one breath. The holy warrior stated, placing his hand on the protagonist's back, that he had completely forgotten. He needed to heal him, after all. He was going to kill the emperor. Shi Zheng asked, was he serious? Suddenly he came very close to MC and noticed that his eye was injured. His bones were in pieces, his blood was almost gone, and he had lost another arm. Qiao Mu noted that there was no point in looking at him. He wouldn't last long with such a body. He said while he was inflicting a wound on himself that it didn't matter. The protagonist asked in horror why he did that. Shi Zheng restored his arm using his abilities and said that it was much better now. The protagonist asked with a changed face, was he really a Lego figure to him? Suddenly, a green aura began to emanate from his new arm, and MC fell to the ground in pain. After a while, Qiao Mu looked at his arm in surprise. Had he really recovered? His level of medicine probably surpassed even Songhe. Now this guy had become his new nightmare. The holy warrior said, turning to Shi Zheng, that he was leaving him to him. He must cure him, and then let him go about his business. His destination is already on the way. At this moment, the emperor was heading to his destination. Sometime later, in the Hucheng tea house, the storyteller told a story from a very humble but extremely handsome swordsman. A few days ago, a holy warrior invited a saint, Qinxing, on a date in a deep forest. Afterwards, the two of them fought fiercely under the moonlight, and then the holy warrior took and shrank her to the state of a dried mannequin. The listeners angrily shouted that this scum did not even spare his adopted daughter. How many years did he raise her, only to kill her himself? The holy warrior is simply a demon. The warrior from the Martial Arts Association, a follower of the Martial Arts Association, coldly asked with his arms crossed, what are they talking about in their pavilion? Are they even talking such nonsense about the holy warrior? Qinxing is a traitor to the path of martial arts. The holy warrior only took away her qi energy to eradicate the traitor. It was an act of valor. He does everything for the great path. The Xuantian sect cultivator asked angrily, how many people had the Martial Artist Association tricked into training this damn technique? Tomorrow, the holy warrior would devour him. Would he also go, for the sake of the martial arts path? He angrily shouted that he only devoured those who had reached the 3rd stage of spirit cultivation, and he was at the 8th stage. He shouted, grabbing his sword, that after he devoured all his disciples, he would be next. The warrior from the Martial Artist Association shouted that the holy warrior was their last hope. If he finished off the Immortals, he would not mind. The Xuantian sect cultivator shouted that he was acting like a loyal dog. He even barked on command. At this time on the street, Qian asked in confusion, was he really devoured internal energy? Was this his technique? After a while in the forest, the star envoy asked, turning to Zhang, how were his injuries? The protagonist noted that he had already fully recovered. Qian's methods can literally resurrect the dead, grow bones from meat. By the way, Qian, is he also one of the 3,000 disciples of the Holy Warrior? He spent a couple of days with him. He barely spoke. He noted that this was true. He is one of the 7 sages under the Holy Warrior. The protagonist asked what this meant. The messenger said that they were the strongest of all the remaining disciples. Of the 3,000, only about 100 survived, and these 7 are the most powerful of them. Each has at least one skill, in which he surpasses even the Holy Warrior himself. MC thought that the Holy Warrior had already devoured 3,000 people, about 100 remained. In fact, how is he then different from that heretical sect where Qinxing was a holy maiden? Xiaomu asked if Qi Zhen's special skill is really medicine. He said that he has no reliable information on this matter. Qi Zhen asked, does he really think this is medicine? However, he has only just begun to master the technique, the transformation of flesh and blood. Naturally, he cannot feel the difference yet. The protagonist asked, was this technique really invented by a holy warrior? He noted that the real technique is at the level of the 3rd stage of spirit cultivation. He now just has the basic version. Compared to the full technique, it is just makeup and plasticity. The protagonist asked with a gleam in his eyes, does he have a chance to get the full version of this technique? Qi asked, turning to the envoy, is he sure that the emperor is really in Hucheng now? MC shouted irritably, why is he always cutting off the conversation mid-sentence? The envoy noted that this information was received from Mo Mingji, the head of the Clear Moon sect. He was the former star envoy, so this is most likely true. Besides, Hucheng is closest to the Qingming Mountains, and the emperor is accompanied by the Taoist Chu Xin. They are staying there. It sounds logical. Xiaomu said that the emperor is slippery like an eel. If this information turns out to be false, then a direct assault on the Qingming Mountains is inevitable. Qi Zhen noted that he really is a cheerful person. The chance of surviving an assassination attempt is 1 in 100. And what if he does not return? The protagonist said with a smile that it would be even better that way. He said that with such a mood as his, it is not surprising that the Holy Warrior did not kill him. The protagonist happily said that he does not need to worry about anything. If anything happens, he will cover, and he just needs to run away. Qi Zhen looked at him with a smile and said that the absorption technique with which the Holy Warrior draws in the spirit of Stage 3 cultivators is just right for him. In the future, he will be able to set foot on the path of spirit cultivation. The Holy Warrior dragged him into this for a reason. This is a test. If he passes, he will be raised as a new martial path bearer. If he fails, he will become his food. And only if he survives, the test will be counted as passed. MC asked in bewilderment, he must survive. Seriously? Xiaomu shouted angrily, what if he dies? That is also a choice. They had another agreement. Let the Holy Warrior pass on the technique to his relatives. He does not mind it. Qi Zhen noted, turning to the messenger, that they would first go to the Clear Moon sect to meet with Mo Mingji. The messenger must convey a message to the Holy Warrior. The messenger said that he understood the order. The protagonist shouted angrily that he had already had enough of him. He must stop cutting off the conversation in mid-sentence. Sometime later, at the foot of the Qingming Mountains in the city of Hucheng, the protagonist and Qi Zhen arrived at the entrance to the Clear Moon sect. MC noted that it seemed to be a large sect under the wing of the Wuji Union. Why is there no one at the entrance? Qi Zhen said that no one was greeting them. That was strange. Suddenly, there was a noise, and he noticed that someone was crying, and he smelled blood. Xiaomu said that something had happened there. Did the Immortals know they were coming and set up an ambush for them in advance? Qi Zhen remarked as he opened the gate that they needed to look inside. If it really was an ambush, so much the better. They would flip the trap, grab the enemies, and beat the information out of them. The protagonist remarked with a smile that this was actually his line. He was an ordinary doctor. Why was he so belligerent? They followed the source of the noise. Mingji used his ability and crushed the disciple who was begging for mercy. He asked if they had already arrived. He was surrounded by the disciples he had killed. Mingji rushed at them and shouted that he had been waiting for them for a long time. The protagonist used his ability and grabbed his opponent by the wrist. The MC gritted his teeth and declared that he must not touch the doctor. Let him fight him. Xiaomu threw his enemy aside and rushed at him. They fiercely exchanged a series of blows. Qi Zhen noticed that this was the leader of the Clear Moon sect. He was once a 4th stage warrior at his peak, but in 70 years he had aged and dropped to 3rd stage. The protagonist shouted that 3rd stage was no problem for him. He declared that he must consider that his enemy had absorbed the chi and blood of many disciples of his sect. With this, he can recover, so he was able to reach his best form again. At this moment, the MC was thrown into the wall by the enemy's blow. Qijin asked, "Is he okay?" Xiao Mu said with gritted teeth that he was almost dead. "Can you stop cutting off your words mid-sentence? This trash is too strong. Is this trash really over 70? Mingji shouted furiously, rushing at him. Why is he resisting? He is weaker than him. Resistance is useless. The protagonist dodged the opponent's strike. He shouted, grinning, that he should stand still and let his energy be absorbed. The protagonist thought, smiling, that this is definitely a veteran of the Alliance. He is talking the same nonsense as the Holy Warrior. Mingji is about 50 to 60% stronger than him in strength, but if he activates the disintegration of the Heavenly Demon, he will be able to defeat him. Although Qijin said that he cannot die in this trial, therefore he will not use his technique for now. MC deftly dodged a series of blows from his opponent. Qijin thought, watching the fight, that he was using his speed advantage. He is dodging and looking for an opportunity to finish off his enemy. This is an excellent tactic against ordinary enemies. But Mingji is not an ordinary opponent. He will not play by the rules. Xiaomu dodged another attack from his enemy at the last moment and thought, gritting his teeth, has he really figured out his movement technique? The protagonist counterattacked, accurately kicking his opponent in the chest. This move showed his excellent physical fitness and ability to think on the battlefield. The protagonist declared that the advantage in the battle was now on his side. Suddenly, Mingji grabbed his leg with his hand and declared that he was wrong. He was the one who caught him. MC wondered in surprise, why wasn't he afraid to die? Where did he get this familiar feeling from? He slammed him into the ground with force. Xiaomu thought it was a curse. He was seriously injured. Why didn't he react to this? It turns out that he was deliberately going to exchange blows. The protagonist thought, jumping away from the enemy, that his opponent was attacking without any defense. Previously, he would have dreamed of such an opponent. However, now he must survive. Fighting against an opponent while holding back is sheer torture. Qijin asked, did he still not understand? Mingji had gone crazy. He would not reason with him anymore. Every blow he struck was a suicide attack. He just wanted to kill him. If he had any trump cards left, he advised him to take them out right now. He reminded him, after watching his opponent use a technique to strengthen his body, that if he failed the test, he would be absorbed. Mingji lunged forward to grab the protagonist, who at first looked at him with fear, but eventually his gaze noticed something. At that moment, huge hands grabbed him, and Qijin thought, is this really the end of the fight? Mingji declared that he had lost. He should obediently become his food. MC asked with a smirk, why did he try to complicate things? If we fight, then until the last breath. Xiaomu used a technique, Heavenly Demon's Reckoning, thanks to which he was able to escape from the enemy's grip. Then the protagonist began to strike his enemy with a series of blows with a smile on his face. The protagonist cried out, gritting his teeth and chuckling. Now this fight can already be called interesting. The MC dealt a crushing blow to his opponent, which sent him flying far back. Mingji asked, while his body was shaking, where is he now? Xiaomu stepped on him with his foot to finish off his enemy. Qijin said that he should let him live. The madness in his body dissipated. He had to come to his senses. Let him first explain what happened here. The protagonist looked at him and then remarked, removing his foot, that luck was on his side. Mingji said that he wanted to die at the hands of the Holy Warrior himself. He wanted his energy to be absorbed by the Holy Warrior. However, if Qijin did it, he was also not against it. Qijin said that his time had not yet come, so he should better explain what happened here. He said, with his head down, that yesterday he accidentally ran into Taoist Chu Xin of the Xuantian sect in Hucheng. He was accompanying the emperor, so he began to secretly follow him. However, in the end, he came straight to their sect himself. The protagonist asked, crossing his arms, did Chu Xin really want to cover his tracks so that no one would find the emperor's trail? Mingji said that was not the case at all. He tested him. He really did not care whether the emperor's path was revealed or not. He only came to test the technique, the spiritual sensitivity of a holy warrior. He said that Chu Xin said that this technique was not that powerful. Even if he devoured everyone, they were still ordinary warriors. Mingji shouted that he must not touch him. If he needed a rival, he must fight him. He must let his son go. He opened his eyes and said that he not only slaughtered almost all of his disciples, he even killed his only son in front of him. He rushed at him, ready to die, but he couldn't even touch him. Qijin noted that he had lost his son, lost everything he had spent half his life building, and in desperation, he began to absorb the remaining strength from the surviving disciples. Mingji said that he did not do this out of desperation. He did it deliberately. Suddenly, they were surrounded by sect disciples. MC asked with a grin, preparing for a fight. This was already interesting. So they have an ambush here too? He wants to absorb both of them, right? Xiao Mu thought that these people were from different sects. And they were all masters, he should definitely not underestimate them. Getting surrounded was too disadvantageous, he should first break through them. This was the best plan. To his surprise, they all bowed their heads in a bow. The protagonist asked in confusion, what was going on? They hadn't even started fighting, and they were already all scared? Was his aura that powerful? Mingje claimed that he was just a spy now. If he didn't embellish the information, how could he lure the holy warrior here? He was already old, so he would rather sacrifice his body. Let the holy warrior kill him first, and then go kill those outsiders. They were all warriors who had lost their homes to outsiders, and their personalities were also appropriate. He had passed on the technique, the holy warrior's soul affinity to them, and he had also reached rank 4 again. Now they were worthy prey for the holy warrior? Chijin said that this was nonsense. What did the saint care about their deaths? He pointed out that they would not die for the sake of the holy warrior, but for the sake of saving the martial arts of the entire world. Mingje said that people once rebelled against outsiders, fought shoulder to shoulder, united by a common hatred. And now they only humiliate themselves before strangers, build temples for them, bow down, pray for protection and well-being, so as not to suffer from natural disasters. But do ordinary people know how many of these disasters were caused by strangers themselves, in order to strengthen their power? He himself witnessed such an act, where a stranger orders his subordinates to do this. Qin Yang asked why the master ordered them to first send a disaster, and then distribute food, helping people. Qi Yan noted with a grin that this is what the master calls the path of worship. The Da-Yang Empire is destined to be in turmoil. There is no other way. But they cannot go too far. The world must be dirty, people must suffer, then they will pray and bring endless gifts. He noted that if because of wars, famine and disasters there are too few people, it will be bad. Therefore, when the people are on the brink, they are obliged to come and supposedly save them from trouble. He laughingly stated that he learned it quickly. Qin Yan pointed out that it was because he had a good teacher. After a while, Ming Jie punched the ground and shouted that if this continued, they would finally become pets raised by outsiders. The protagonist thought that it was no wonder that Songhe had spoken of the strange frequency of disasters recently. In Yancheng, so many refugees had turned to banditry. Could this also be the work of immortals? He pointed out that the path of immortality was stronger than the path of martial arts. Martial arts had been inferior to Taoist techniques for 1,000 years. But there were legends of warriors who achieved the Tao through martial arts. The holy warrior was their greatest hope. They shouted that they were willing to become victims on the path of destroying outsiders. Even if it was just to narrow the gap a little, they would not be willing to do that. The protagonist slapped Ming Jie and shouted that these idiots would be willing to do that. Ming Jie shouted that he was rude. He didn't understand anything. The MC shouted in annoyance while slapping his face with his hand that he should shut up. If he didn't want to save himself, he shouldn't interfere with others. Their motives won't help them hide how pathetic they are. Since they say it's for the people, aren't there any disciples among the people? They hear them screaming for help when they were being absorbed? How are they any different from outsiders? Xiao Mu felt like his hand was hurting now. Mingje said that it wasn't like that at all. It was all for the sake of martial arts. Suddenly, the holy warrior appeared behind him and asked, were these his last words? He looked at his stern gaze with fear. He grabbed his face with his hand and began to absorb his energy. The holy warrior asked, if they had lost hope of fighting the cultivators, then they decided to pin all their dreams on some martial arts leader? They were just a bunch of cowards. They are not worthy even to become his victim. They must leave here immediately. Shijin noted that if there was no news from the Mingyue sect, they would continue to search for the emperor. He said that there was no need to do that. A message came from other branches. The emperor had already reached Qingming City. He asked if he was already in that city. This meant that he was probably already at Qingyan Temple. The protagonist noted with a smile that they would no longer be able to attack him on the way. They had only one option left, to break into Qingyan Temple and kill the emperor. After some time in Qingming City, the protagonist and Shizhen followed the servant who led them to the room. MC noted that this was strange. They had not seen a single farm along the way, only shops with incense and candles. Did all the residents really live off of trade with pilgrims? The servant noted with a laugh that they were immediately obvious that they were not locals. They did not need to work the fields here. He said that the elders of the Xuantian sect took pity on them and told them to pray, read sacred texts, go to worship, and they will have food. Naturally, this is only for city residents, and becoming a local is quite difficult. You need to sincerely pray day after day without interruption for 10 years. But compared to the growing taxes of the empire, this place is simply paradise. In other places, taxes are collected in advance for 20 years. It is almost impossible for people to get food. Therefore, people come here from all over the southern province. Xiao Mu thought irritably that he had pinned on a token and was now walking proudly. The protagonist asked, "And who gets money and food for life if no one works?" The servant said that the immortals are so powerful, perhaps they just materialize everything out of thin air. Then he said that these are their rooms, they need to rest if anything, they can call him. The protagonist thought that they take money from the emperor for supposedly peaceful negotiations, and with it they grow their parishioners. All the dirt falls on the empire's shoulders, while they themselves sit clean. This is where the real benefit lies. Chijin said that he should go inside the room and undress. MC asked with a laugh, "Does he really have strange inclinations?" He pointed out that he used the technique, the heavenly demon's retribution, because of which he suffered greatly. He will treat him. Xiaomu proudly declared that he can honestly admit he just wants to admire him. Chijin asked irritably, "If he insists so, then should he kill him right now?" The protagonist said that it was just a joke. He said it was boring. The protagonist noted that no matter how much he looked at it, he was shocked every time. The art of flesh transformation is really an incredible technique. Chijin asked, "Does he really think so? Then he should try it himself." Unexpectedly, he struck him and used his ability to heal him. Chijin noted that his external wounds were not scary, but the internal damage to the meridians due to the technique, heavenly demon's retribution, was a problem. When his flesh entered his body, it would be able to directly repair his damage from the inside. MC asked with a smile, "Does this mean that he will be able to freely use the technique, heavenly demon's retribution, in the future?" He said that he did not advise him to take such a risk. It would take at least 3 days for the meridians to fully recover. However, this would not affect his plan to assassinate the emperor. Xiaomu asked, "Would it really take 3 days? Does he know the exact time when he will perform the ritual?" Chijin noted that it will be the 1st of next month. An auspicious day, ideal for praying and burning incense. Since the operation will begin soon, he should take this. The protagonist happily declared that this is the complete text of the technique. Infinite flesh transformation. He is really giving this to him? He cannot change his mind later. He said that naturally he will not take the technique from him. The system window reported that the technique was loading, infinite flesh transformation. The protagonist's expression changed and said that it was very suspicious of him to give gifts without any reason. Could this be an order from a martial arts saint? Chijin noted that it was more accurately from him. The MC shouted in irritation that he should explain properly. He noted, addressing him by his name Zhang, that he and the other people from the Qiao family are true warriors who put honor above life. However, he hoped that he would care more about his own life. The holy warrior is stubborn and arrogant. He only believes in himself. What he is capable of now, even he does not know. Xiaomu asked if he was afraid that he would trust him, decide to sacrifice himself and die in vain? Like what happened to Mingji? The protagonist stated that true self-sacrifice is worthy of respect. He supports such a choice. But neither Mingji nor he were like that. He cannot worry. His goal is to obtain the promised technique. He would never truly sell his life for him. Chijin noted before leaving that many believed the holy warrior's words, but they all died. The protagonist thought, scratching his head with his hand, that this Chijin was acting friendly. Either he sympathized as someone like him, or he was hiding evil intent. He strives for a high-quality death, but he has his own principles. He was not originally in league with the Wuji Association, and they cannot be called allies. After 3 days, in the Xuanqian sect, an auspicious hour had arrived. MC thought that there were a decent number of people here. If he had known about this, he would not have disguised himself as a pilgrim. The kinship of the holy warrior's souls responded. Among the pilgrims, there were people from the Wuji Association. The holy warrior was most likely among them. At this moment, Qian said that they should stop. Further on is the main hall of the immortals. Warriors are not allowed to enter there. Qinyang asked them to go ahead one by one and perform the rite. The emperor ordered his attendant to stay here, who did so. After a while, Yonghei, the emperor, thought that he surely knew that cooperating with the Xuantian sect was like negotiating with a tiger. If he had come here today as an ordinary pilgrim, perhaps he would have had a chance to change things later. They exchanged glances, and a deafening roar was heard. The immortals asked, turning to the emperor, if he saw immortals in front of him, why did he not kneel before them? They asked in annoyance, why did he not swear by them? He thought that he had been caught. Under the guise of an alliance, they lured him here to pray. In reality, they wanted the whole world to see him kneel before them. This cannot be allowed. He cannot kneel, no matter what. Suddenly, Yonghei saw behind him an abyss in which the people were asking His Majesty to kneel before the gods. They begged him for it with terrifying grimaces on